Nomad at Night, starring the one and only Nomad.
Yo, Nomaniacs, what's good? Welcome to Nomad at Night. This is your host, Nomad, and I got my trusty over here to my right. Here's the Canuck is here. We got Country Santa down at the bottom. I can't really call him that, and I'm kind of pissed off about it, man. You got him down there. He got him all shaved up, man. We're going to come up with another name by the time the end of the show. I guarantee you, Brian. And we got my guy, J2K, down at the bottom, the super producer. Hey, man, listen. Apologies ahead of time to you guys that saw the previous thumbnail with Braggs on it. Greg Braggs Jr., his official name, from CHGO. Braggs had an unforeseen circumstance happen, man. He was at the and correct me if I'm wrong, J2K, at the Cubs game, and I don't know how many of you guys found out about this, but there was apparently an escalator accident or incident that happened that injured some people there, and he was one of them, man. It sounded like texting today, he let me know that he was in pretty bad shape. And, and by the way, he will come on the show later on. We'll do a show together and make that up to you guys. But he said that his knee was pretty busted up, and, man, it didn't sound good. And, I know what it feels like after you get a significant enough injury. That first day after is probably the worst day ever, because you got to deal with all the swelling, especially on the knee. It sounds like he had a knee bang up, and he's probably got some fluid on it or something like that, man. But it didn't sound good when you can't bend it. That means you got tendons inflamed and things like that going on. But it didn't sound good, so I totally understood why he could not do the show tonight. And so while we're at it, sending good vibes to Braggs for some speedy healing, man, and glad that he didn't have his daughter with him and his family, and he was the only one affected. And so, speedy healing to Bragg. Shout out to him. We'll get him on here later, man. So before I go any further, man, listen, my guy, the Canuck, man, we've been working. Let's just say that we've been working. He, J2K, and I, and we've landed on something that we think you guys are gonna like. I will say this to my guy, Kids, man. I want to say this in front of him so everybody and anybody listening to this show will understand where I'm coming from. We've come a long way, he and I together, doing these podcasts and being a part of this network. And I've always told him, I love them all, man. I love everybody that's ever been a part of what we do. But there's a certain connection that Keds and I have, man. And it didn't happen right away. It happened by circumstance. One day we were in the green room. I hope you don't mind me talking about this, Keds, but we began.
I'm not sure where you're going. You just go. You go.
You're like, trust me, it's just the truth. We began to bond over stuff that isn't Chicago Bears podcast related. Hip hop and music and things like that. We found a common kinship. And I consider Keds my brother. And I love him, and I want to see him do well. And anything that I can do to help facilitate that, I will, man. He's been honest with me, up front with me, and he's stuck with us through the thick and thin. So I appreciate him. And I love him, and I've told him, for a while now that, you should have something of your own. You should have something that you can really pour yourself into and be confident about it. And so, with that being said, I'm gonna pass it over to the Canuck, and he can show you guys what we're working on.
Well, where do I go with all that? Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. But I think I'll just do this. How do you like them apples, no maniacs? So we're gonna do something real cool, and we hope that you like it. We hope some of you guys are fantasy football heads out there. We're gonna spin things into a little bit of a fantasy football show. And hopefully, as many of you guys can join us, not only join us, but maybe even potentially join the league if you're not a fantasy football, guy right now. Maybe you will be afterwards. The upside here is we're going to be, kicking it with all the No Maniacs, keeping you guys up and involved. We want to run multiple leagues and give you guys shout outs as we go throughout the season, as well as obviously touch on players and player activity, ADP, who's leading as a wide receiver, running back, quarterback, etc. Just do just have some fun with it across the board. So hey, Jason, if you've never done fantasy football, by all means, this is your opportunity to do it. Over the next couple of weeks, the team over here, we're going to really iron things out and figure out some very specific things as far as which fantasy football channel we're going to do this all on. But once we've landed on all of that and we've gotten a little bit further on our progression, what we'll wind up doing is relaunching here in full, giving you guys the opportunity to join up to the league. And if you don't want to join up to the league and you just want to watch the show, by all means do that too. We'll definitely appreciate any and all activity in that respect. But big things, we're doing some cool stuff over here, and I can't thank Nomad enough. We'll be doing it in full conjunction. It'll be a Kedza Canuck thing, but at the same time, it'll be in conjunction fully with the Nomad Network and my friends and family over here. So should be good fun. Hopefully, you guys enjoy where we're headed and what we're planning to do.
And really quickly, man, let me give a super shout out to J2K, who's made himself available and made himself a resource over here to help facilitate everything that we're trying to do. And it happened all of a sudden, but the way it happened and the support that J2K poured into what kids had on his mind and his passion about wanting to do this and do it a certain way, J2K, he just opened up that door, the two doors, he just opened them up and all that light came through. And he was just like, okay, kid, let's run it. Let's do it. Let's do it how you want to do it. Let's figure out a plan and let's do it. Actually, it's a show that I wanted to do last year, but we didn't have what we needed in place to pull that off. But look, it looks good, and I feel like we're going to be able to pull that off this year. And I'll be glad to add that content and have kids be the face of it, man, because I think he deserves his own thing. I know he deserves his own thing. And he's going to be good at it, man. So he's building out his team, getting his resources together, and I'm there for whatever he needs. And so is J2K, and respect to J2K for those violently good graphics right there. That was awesome, man. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you, J2K.
Yeah, absolutely. J2K deserves mad respect for that. I didn't really see that coming, but boom, you guys all got to experience it with me. Just awesome graphical work. So that's some of the type of stuff that you're going to expect from the show. But outside of that, just going to be a good time chopping it up about football.
Sure will. But hey, listen, you guys came here to watch a football show, and you want to talk about these training camp storylines. And we're going to get to that. Definitely going to get to that. Not that much time. But before we get to that, I just wanted to say, what's up to everybody. Let's give some shout outs, kids, and let's just talk and be human for a minute. Let's speak to the people right quick.
Right on. Big love to my guy Scottish Bear for joining us from across the pond. Junior's with us. It's Crimson's out there. Jay Grizz, what it do, Jay Grizz? Hey Patty, how are you? Hopefully you're good. Black Rain's out there. Black Diamond's out there. What it do, Petty Murphy? Florida Bears fan, our friend Florida. Cornelius Squalls, number 3 No Maniac. The Nodge is with us. Jason's with us. Number 1 No Maniac Plank. The Plankster's definitely in the house. Aunt Mas is out there. Who else we got? I miss anybody out there? I'm sure. Oh, Joseph Archer's with us today. AC Adam, Smitty, Bear Truth 9, BT9. What it do, my brother? Hey man, we got a full house. Let's keep it rocking. Let's do this thing.
Junior wants to know, did you see a drawing of his, man? Do you know? I don't know what that's about, but apparently you do.
Oh no! Did you send it to me, Junior? Man, I asked him. So Junior was saying he draws and he was doing some comic book kind of graphics, and I was like, dude, you got to send it to me. I didn't see it, Junior. Let me take a peek and see if it wound up in my.
Junior, we definitely need to link up because I would absolutely love to include your style and graphics into where we're going with this.
Snap! Let me put up the banner, man. The if that's where you want him to send the information and whatever he's got, you want to send it there, or how you want him to do
I got him. I told him to send it to my DM on Twitter. I'm just checking it now because I'm a Twitter delinquent, and I see them now. Man, if I saw them before, I would pop them up on the show. I might even pop them up on the show. Can I pop them up on the show? Anybody mind?
Go ahead, man.
I'd love to see it.
Junior, I'm showing your stuff, Junior.
Oh wow!
Boom! That's awesome.
Damn, Junior.
Nice.
That's
nice.
That's
you
so
see
cool.
what happens, man, when you open up the avenue to the Nomaniacs, man, and we'll find out what kind of creativity we have sitting here in this community with us, man. This shit is awesome, Junior. I mean, absolutely, that's dope stuff. I can definitely see
monkey
there. J2K, let me shut up because I know you want to speak to this man.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So Junior, I think you kind of nailed it. We are doing a kind of a comic book theme with the Superflex show, and this is absolutely perfect. So Junior, find me on Twitter at J2K Designs, and let's start talking because I could really use this kind of artwork, and I can do colorization. I can incorporate this into video. I can do a lot with what you're doing already, and it looks fantastic. So absolutely, man, this is way too cool, and it fits perfectly with the theme.
Junior, I'm not even blowing smoke because you're a Nomaniac and you're a supporter of the show. I am telling you, that shit is dope. It is dope, and people ought to see it. That's some man. I would have never thought.
Me either. I just we were just chopping it up in the chat there the other day, and I was like, "Hey, just send it to me. I'll check it out when you send it." And I like I said, wasn't paying any attention. There it is in my DMs. Wow, really cool. And as J2K is saying, there's going to be, I'm a very specific guy. I love specific things. One of those things is cool comic book art and comic books in general. So that's going to be a little bit of a little bit of inspiration when it comes down to the fantasy football show and how things are themed and stuff like that. So absolutely, any art like that, by all means, throw it at my DM, and that goes for the rest of you Nomaniacs. Who knows what other hidden talents you guys have out there? Send it to my DM at Kez the Canuck, and we'll try and incorporate what you have out there if at all possible. That'd be really cool. I think that's wow. I'm kind of blown away. That was awesome.
Hey, Junior, do me a favor, because Sean knows we've been looking for people that have talent, have different varieties of talent, that have stuff that they want to let the people see, you know what I mean, or hear, or whatever it is. And Sean has never said that to me. Just let Sean know. Send him a text right now. And when I see him, I'm Cactus Jacking his ass on spot. I'm not telling you. That's just wild. He didn't even tell me. Sean has got to know you got skills like that. And he never said nothing to me.
Sean's slipping, bro. Sean's slipping.
Hey, I know we're live right now, but I'm kind of feeling like, do you want to show that template that I showed you, Keds, about the thumbnail template? Is it too soon? The cartoon or the comic book style template, you know what I'm talking about?
If it's in here, I'll pop it up just for.
I just put it in. I just jumped in backstage.
There you go.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
This is just a little bit of the styling of the future show and what we plan to do with that. This will be our thumbnails. Our thumbnails will look similar to this. Obviously, different players, different situations. But we also sort of plan to put together maybe even like a little weekly comic book idea that just sort of gives you a quick overview of what the week in the NFL kind of shook out as. So, Tyreek Hill crushed it, put up 100 yards. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll be able to flip through that and get a quick understanding of who's who in the zoo, what kind of free agents are out there you should be looking at for your next week in fantasy. So should be a pretty cool idea. Hopefully, again, those of you out there who enjoy fantasy football or who have never done it and have always sort of thought about getting into it, by all means, jump in. We'd love to have you, and it'll be it'll be a fun season.
Real quick, this is not going to be a Bears-centric podcast. I'm gonna repeat, this won't be a Bears-centric podcast. Kids is a Bears fan, but this is a league-wide situation where he has to appeal to every team in the league. There's 32 teams and all kinds of players on them. He's going to be a Bears fan, but this is a neutral podcast, so don't expect like Bears content here. It's going to be an NFL fantasy football content show. And by the way, and we're going to get to Brian, so Brian can introduce himself and say hello. Patty says he does. I can see this. Armando Jr. does tattoos as well. I can see that.
Yeah, that too.
Man,
I believe that too. Wow,
that is. I can definitely imagine him. I got one tattoo on me, man, and I've been thinking of my girlfriend's trying to get me to get some more, but I don't like it. I ain't gonna lie, it hurts bad, and I don't like it. And they don't let you drink and get all folded before you get a tattoo. They say it's not good. I forgot what the guy said to me. Your blood's thin or something. I don't know, but yeah, I don't look forward to no tattoos or no needles, man. Y'all gonna miss me with all that. But let's pass it over to Country Santa, man. How you doing, man? And you want to give a shout out?
Yeah, I'm doing fabulous. Thank you, No Maniacs, for sharing your time. Patty, I was a little surprised with the Mr. Brian Sir. I'm not used to being called Sir. I appreciate that, whether it was an accident or not. Jason, give me a couple of weeks and I'll look like Foster again. And if you notice, you never see me and Foster in the same place at the same time. Coincidence? Naj, as far as this background, give a special thanks to Mr. Chris Washington. He made this for me, and he did Keds as well. Awesome job. I wish I had a basement like this, but it's awesome. Armando, I heard that you could draw. I didn't know it was that well. That's amazing. And Nomad, to answer your question that I know you're dying to know, I got 2 tattoos. I got a Tasmanian devil on my right arm after Road Warrior Animal. And then I got Notre Dame Fighting Irishman on my left arm. It was a week before, I believe in 92, week before the Florida State game when Florida State was ranked number 1. Notre Dame was ranked number 2. Notre Dame went to Florida State, beat them, and then the following week got beat by Boston College. But anyway, thanks again, guys, for showing up. We got a great show for you. We should have fun.
Hey, before we get to all that, you guys, J2K, you want to give some shout outs, man? But I was about to take off on you.
Hey, the usual, just thanks to everybody for being here. I'm so happy that we've got this awesome crew in the chat. So happy to work with you guys. I'm really ecstatic about the direction of the Nomad Network and Ked's new podcast, Superflex. It's going to be awesome. There's a lot of stuff. We just showed you the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more that we're working on, and we expect great things from this new podcast. So I'm very, very excited about it. What's up, Brian?
I'm sorry. I'm reading Squeegee's comment.
Okay. What do you say? What's Squeegee talking about?
Don Burr has a Peterbilt tattoo on his tonsils.
That's funny.
That's a good one.
I'm sorry for laughing while you was talking. I read that. No, I couldn't hold back.
It's totally justified. That's hilarious. But yeah, thanks to all you guys. Keds always does the individual shout outs to you guys. You all know who you are. I always hang out with you, rock with you guys in the chat on other podcasts, on this podcast. So I just appreciate this great community that we've built and for all the time you guys spend hanging out with us. So much love, much appreciation, and get excited about the future, you guys. This is a slow time in the football season, but behind the scenes with Nomad and with Keds and even with Brian, hook him up with that new computer and getting him live, getting him on the shows again. We're grinding, you guys. We're working hard, and we're getting stuff done, and we're gonna make the best next season that we possibly can. And I can't wait for all you guys to be on the bus with us. So thanks again to everybody.
I like that. Even with Brian.
Hey man, hey dude, hey, don't act like you ain't a little bit of work now. God damn it, shit now. We gotta put a little time on your ass.
Well, Brian's doing stuff behind the scenes as well. He's taking care of the social media side of things. So go subscribe or like our Facebook page, follow our Facebook page. You're going to be hanging out with Brian. You want to hang out with him 24/7. That's the place to do it. He's a great guy. Obviously, we all know him so well. So yeah, just hang out there and get to know Brian, see how he's doing, and we'll just keep talking football.
Yes, please go check out that Facebook page. We are in urgent need of 100 followers. All we need is 100 followers, and we can broadcast to Facebook on our page, man. We just need 100 followers. So if you see the Nomad Network, that's Brian speaking with you. I'll be there from time to time, and we'll all chip in here and there, but that'll be Brian speaking with you. He's communicating, doing our social media right now. So if you do nothing else, if you don't like me, go say what's up to Brian. Love on him, man. Give him some love over there on Facebook. He's trying to grow our presence there, and it's desperately needed over here so that we can grow as a community. So give Brian a shout out over there and give us a follow on Facebook.
We can talk Bears football. We can talk pro wrestling. We can talk whether I need to shave, let it grow out, look like Cousin It. Hey, I'm all for it.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen. You know what? Before we get all the way into this football conversation, I just wanted to get one more real, up close with you guys, kids. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but since you just picked that up, what are we drinking tonight, No Maniacs? This is Nomad at Night, man. I know you ain't sitting at home on a Sunday, bald head ass sober. I got Jameson, and I got some cheap ass beer right next to that. And
I got a big jug of water.
It's some damn Bush Light. My girlfriend, she has disowned me. She just said, you know what? You're getting whatever I find at the grocery store. That's what I'm coming home with. I don't want to hear no shit, and you're gonna drink it. What you got there, kids?
A little bit of Appleton's rum and mixed with some orange juice. It tastes like absolute garbage, but here we are.
At least you're honest.
What a trooper.
What you sipping on, JTK? I know you got something.
I got
like you got into detail with me.
Yeah, so I've got it's from Stone Brewery, and it's called Delicious, and it absolutely lives up to its name. It is an IPA, and I am an IPA drinker. I like everything with flavor, and this has got a ton of flavor. It's a West Coast style IPA. If you know, you know, and it's got citrusy style hops. You know. It's not a citrus beer. Just a heads up. It's a full flavored IPA, but in the beer world, we call it citrus style hops, floral style hops. So it's one of my favorite, and that's what I'm having.
Got some Keystone Light up in this camp. I seen Coffee and Bailey. That's the nod. Somebody just said Old Forester, aged 20 years. Woo! Bet that shit's strong as hell. Jason with the vodka and water. And what's this? Crimson? What do you got here, man? This is Scatterlight. Never heard of that.
It's actually the name of an old ska reggae group from Jamaica. Just to put that out, the Scatterlight.
Glenn Morgan. What is this?
MB 2020. Don Burr. Don Burr's in the building.
Wait a minute, hold on. Jay Grizz put a decent one in there. Here you go, J2K. I'm drinking a cloudy and a cumbersome IPA by Levante Brewing Company, along with some Tito's vodka mixed with some Red Bull. Shout out to the Superbag Sean C. era.
Nice.
That is your neighborhood, J2K. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, J Grid. That sounds delicious, my man.
A cloudy and a cumbersome. I am totally lost there. That's
Sorry, Squeegee killed it.
Squeegee's on a roll tonight.
Squeegee's the guy today. Squeegee's the guy. I'm not even going to read that. I'll just leave it there.
No.
Sorry, folks listening on a non-video podcast and can't read it.
Yeah.
I apologize now. But
that explains the Peterbilt fingernails.
Damn, Don. You gonna let Squeegee just strip you down asshole naked and beat you with a cactus like that?
I'm sorry. It was funny. It was funny. I had to put it out there. Thank you for that one, Squeegee. I'm sure you got a bunch of them.
That was hilarious, man. Squeegee had to write these down, but good Lord. Hey man, you gotta get them cactus stores out your ass, Don. He beating you to death, man. But all right, man, let's get to some football, man, because that's what people came here to talk about. And Gervon Dexter, you saw on the thumbnail, you saw Tremaine Edmonds, and I believe DeMarcus Walker. Let's circle DeMarcus Walker for a minute. Kids, I'm gonna take off on this one and take a little bit of meat off for you. Okay. But I apologize ahead of time because there's a lot of fans in the fan base that are dead ass, like, hurry up and sign someone with that type of mindset. And I understand it because, the free agency pool is very, very small right now. It's thin, but it's got more players than people want to give credence to because it's a lot of them they just don't know a lot about, and they just hear the names that other podcasters talk about, on people on sports shows and different things like that. There's quite a few names still there. Who the Bears will choose is another thing. But I'm quite certain you feel like DeMarcus Walker, I think you feel like he can be okay for now, but I think you believe that we do need to add another veteran, someone else that can bring something else to the table. Are you comfortable with DeMarcus Walker going into the season as the opposite defensive end for Montez Sweat?
Man, am I comfortable with it? I don't know if I am. And I think I kind of have to let them get through. I just have to be honest here. I kind of have to let them go through a little bit of training camp to really determine whether they feel comfortable with that as an option. And it's got a lot less to do, and I'll be frank here. There's a lot less to do with DeMarcus Walker specifically. But that whole rotation on that side worries me. Marcus Walker is actually pretty good, and he will scrape up a couple of sacks as we move forward. I know he will, but I'm not so sure about the other two guys that he's going to rotate with. I feel the drop off from Walker is extremely heavy, and I would rather it if he was the drop off, as if somebody else was starting and he's the rotation, because I believe he's good. I trust in his capabilities in that role. I just don't think he's elite at it. And I think the other two guys are much lower than that. Well, no offense, Austin Booker. You've got a ways to go to grow, and we'll see as training camp goes, but really more squarely at Dominique Robinson. I'm not sure if that rotation is a viable thing. I don't know. What do you think, J2K?
I really like Walker, and his game really picked up when Sweat got here. I mean, everybody's game did. I like him for early down, short yardage. He's going to be great in containment. You're basically looking at a 3-tech who can play edge. So I love the rotation quality of him as well. I'm with you, Keds, that there is a drop-off from him, in that you put it perfectly, that you wish he was the drop-off, that we had someone above him, and in between that was the gap. But we actually have 3 guys who are fighting, I think, for the last 2 spots, because you've got Dominique Robinson, you've got Booker, and you also have Jacob Martin, who...
That's right.
I could see Jacob Martin beating out Dominique Robinson. I did like his tape. I don't think he's a long-term fit fix by any means. I do like that back end rotation. I'm 100% with you, kids. I just wish we had an upper tier guy on that right hand side. But at the same time, no team has every single position nailed down.
Yeah.
And outside of maybe, a backup nose or a pass rushing 3-tech, which are more, rotational guys, I see our defense is being pretty much stacked with starters across the board outside of that right defensive end. Even though, I think Walker will play okay. Give him 8 sacks in the season, a bunch of run stuffs. Brian, what do you think?
Oh, I got a short answer and I got a long answer. Short answer, no. Long answer, I like Walker. He is the type of guy that every team should have because he is versatile, play outside and in. Seems to be a great teammate, a leader. I wish that there was a better starter opposite of Sweat. What I think the Bears will do, like I said, give it about 7-10 days or so into training camp. You're going to see who's available. Yeah, you may miss out on somebody. Oh, well, that's a chance you take. But you also, every team right now thinks they improved with the draft and with the free agents that they got. So whoever the incumbent defensive end for whatever given team, they may feel the pressure of, hey, wait a minute, this new kid here, I only got a year or two left on my contract. It isn't looking good for me. I want to be traded. And who knows who that's going to be. But you're pretty sure that it's going to happen. And then also something that hasn't been mentioned that I think is the total key to the defensive line is Eric Washington and how he can mold these guys, getting more out of them than last year.
I think, Brian, the last point he made is totally the thing, and this is about training camp storylines to watch and his impact, Eric Washington's impact on that defensive line. The guys that we have and the new guys, that we just brought in, the second year guys, I think you're totally, absolutely on point with that, man. What's the difference in those guys from before he got here to now? We might see a difference in DeMarcus Walker and how they use him. His different techniques and how he's asking them to rush the passer versus how he did it last year. And so I think that's the key to it. But let me acknowledge Jason for the $4.99 chat. Thank you, Jason. Blessings to you, man. We still have to practice patience, and with 3 picks in the first 2 rounds, Bowles will address that need next year.
True.
You know what, Jason? My only argument to that, my only absolute response to that is what happens if we start to really, really churn it up this year? What if we end up with that really good record, a really positive record, and it's starting to point towards the playoffs? Would you be okay with Poles at the trade deadline making a move? Like, would you be okay if let's just say what's the trade deadline? Week 7? So let's just say we're 4-2 at that time on the winning side. And Poles decides that, you know what, I like the way this team is looking. I like the way this team is trending. We do have some capital for next year. But what if he pours in for this year, Jason? I think you pour into the energy that the team gives you. You just read the team, see what direction they're going. And if you feel like it's a need at that point, I think he spends money there. So let me shut up because I know everybody's got a piece to say about that. But thank you for that, Jason. I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Kids, you muted, bro.
Slipping. I'm just thinking about Sean Sierra, to be honest with you. Sean would love this particular question because in his mind as well as mine to a certain degree, we will be pushing for a Super Bowl come hell or high water in 2025. That's basically what we'll be looking at for sure. And Jason, I appreciate the super chat and the comment, because I'm in full agreement with that. Except I do have to sort of lean over to where Nomad is. There is the remote possibility that this is a really good football team that we're affiliated with, all of us, in the chat as well as on the show. There's a remote possibility that this is a really good, potentially Super Bowl caliber team. I know it's slim, and I know it's surprising for me to say, because I'm generally like not the glass half full guy. I'll put that out there. In any event, there is a possibility. We've seen the defense. The defense is quite staunch. There's really one specific hole, and we all know where it is. And I call it a hole, but we'll just say that the pass rush is lacking. I think it's a better way to put it. Everybody's dead set and focused on defensive end. That pass rush could also come by way of a 3-tech. So there's a couple of different ways to skin that particular cat. They can do what they need to do to get there. But if Poles feels like this is that type of team, he may make a power move to put the league on notice. And if he does that, guys, we're in for one hell of a fun football season, y'all. That's what I'm hoping for.
Kids, I'm gonna pass this one to J2K. I'm gonna speak to Bear Truth 9 here. Good question, J. Good statement. I mean, Bear Truth 9. I'd be good. This is Bear Truth 9. I'd be good as long as it's not for our first or second picks. We need to wait until next offseason unless we look for sure, like a surefire contender. Okay, let's just say
don't trade them. Yeah.
Okay, so just Bear Truth 9. Let's just say, for instance, let's just say that 4-2. Let's just say the defense carries us. Caleb Williams does what he has to do. He's not overwhelming, but he's doing what he's got to do, not giving the game away, and he's doing his part. And he's coming up, and we end up with 4-2 with a dominant defense. And Poles feels like, okay, let's just say, and we're in this conversation now. Let's just say a pass rusher like Max Crosby came up. Let's just say the Raiders came out 1-5, and they know that they have to go into a total rebuild, and Max Crosby is just a luxury piece that they can't afford. And Max Crosby became available at the trade deadline. And so I'm saying Max Crosby is young enough, he's good enough to make a major move for at the trade deadline if we have a 4-2 team that's trending towards a playoff run and a strong one at that. I'm okay with giving up a high draft pick for that. I'm going to pass this to J2K and see what he thinks of what I just said.
Well, I'll start this and say that next year's draft class is stacked at defensive end and defensive tackle. Don't be surprised if 7 or 8 D linemen go in those top 15 to 20 picks this next draft. It is loaded. And when I look at this and I step back from it all, Poles is playing chess and everybody else is playing checkers, because he put us in the perfect position to use a first-round pick on a defensive end, even potentially trading up for the top defensive end coming out, because we've got 2 second-round picks. So I anticipate Poles waiting. However, Nomad makes a great point. You got to feel the pulse of this team come the trade deadline. And if you can make a run into the playoffs this year, why not? Why not speed up this process? The clock is ticking down with Caleb Williams' contract. Granted, it's 5 years away, but that's an NFL window we have to live in. And so the sooner we can get into that window of a championship team, the better. Brian, what do you think?
Before you go ahead, Brian,
Yeah.
go ahead. I'll wait.
Okay. I was going to say any team, in this case, the Bears, with their record, how it sets, by the time the trade deadline comes on, I think it's between week 7 and 9, because something about an election year and they moved it. I thought it was 7. But either way, if you got a chance to get somebody that's top 5 in the league at whatever position you're weak in, this case, defensive end, opposite side, Sweat. I would definitely trade one of the second picks for a couple reasons. One, we've seen the first 2 years that Poles draft. I mean, he brought it down to the studs, and he had to trade to get picks because he didn't have a first round pick his first year. This past draft, you've seen what he did with 4, and it ended up being 5. And I all 5 players are going to make this team. So he don't need a lot of picks. Next year, we got 8 picks. 2 of them are second round picks. Like I said, if you can get a top guy, Max Crosby would be perfect. But I mean, even if it's not Crosby, a top 5 guy of that position, yes, because the draft is always potential, and you're trading for someone that has done it. And it's like, granted, under a different team and different coaches, but they still done it in this league. So yeah, I would, and that's also provided by the Bears have a winning record, whether that's 5-2 or 6-1 or what have you, to get this team over the edge. And then you're going from, we hope to make the playoffs or be a wild card team, that, hey, wait a minute, we got a shot for a division championship, and all bets are off, because usually that's the team that is the healthiest and or luckiest. So yeah, I would definitely back Nomad with what he said.
Here's something I want to keep all the Bears fans. I want the fans to keep this in mind. And I was going to respond to J2K this way. And draft picks are draft picks. The higher you can get a draft pick, the better. And there's high caliber players higher in the draft, no question about it. But I just want people to keep this in mind. I think the defensive end spot is one of the harder positions to draft if you need an immediate impact. So let's just say Ryan Poles did not get that guy this year, and you go and get that guy in this draft coming up, and you expect that guy. Let's just say we draft that guy with our first pick, and you expect that guy to be an impact dominant defensive end, and the minute we put him on the team. I'm telling you guys, that's unfair. Number one. Number two, it's rare that a defensive end comes into the NFL against NFL professionals. These are the best offensive linemen in the world, and he comes in this league and becomes dominant and becomes the piece that Ryan Poles is looking for. That's rare, and it's less than likely. I would just say that. So even if we have a high draft pick and we get the exact guy that we want, don't expect that guy to come in here and be the immediate impact that you guys are looking for. So that's why when those players like that become available, when you're in a position like Ryan Poles is in, that's why you use draft capital. It's for the known quantity, not what you project. And that's what a draft pick is. It's a projection into what you want him to be. And if I'm Ryan Poles in this situation, I'm absolutely putting my money on what I know is already the known quantity, the C in multiple choice, the given. And so, kids, I see you got a mouthful. Go ahead and go there.
Yeah, you made an interesting point, and I kind of started thinking about who are some of these top high end defensive end talents that have been drafted in the past, and who's really stepped up and been dominant. The answer to the exception to the rule here is Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett was a first round draft pick, as in I believe first overall, and just stepped into the role and basically has been in that role ever since. And a prime example of what you're saying is a Bradley Chubb, virtually the exact same position, same draft position, and he just hasn't had the type of caliber
success.
success career thus far as a Myles Garrett would. So it makes a lot of sense as to what you're saying. And really, it's if you're going to put all the eggs in the basket, when do you put the eggs in the basket? Is really what it comes down to. Do you put them in this year if you have
team and
momentum?
When you have that obvious omission that it's a clear and a present weak spot on your roster. I think the roster is built on defense, and there's that piece.
Sorry, come again, bro. You're breaking up, bro.
Me?
Uh-oh. Maybe it's me.
Can you guys hear me?
I hear you fine.
I apologize for interrupting, but I think he's at that point in the roster build where this is when you use capital for a known quantity if we have the team that he thinks he has. This is when you do that,
It avoids the requirement for development, right? And that's the key here. Like that's like the real actual question mark is, okay, so we draft a guy next year, let's develop that guy, put him in a position for success. The upside is we've got a pretty solid defense, a solid guy on the other side, which will likely command the double teams. Hopefully at this point, the interior is really starting to step up and again can swallow up a double team if that's what's happening. And this new young guy can play free and clear. But you can't, that's a possible and potential future, but you can't bet the farm on it. And once more, if this team, as in the 2024 team, is moving in a trajectory where they can do some damage in the postseason, I won't be mad if he pulls the trigger. Is really all I'm saying.
Crimson, I have to address what you're saying because you're absolutely right. It's Crimson, you dig. At some point, he's saying, at some point, I expect him to build through the draft. Crimson, this is what I believe, and I'm going to describe this in the best way I can. I think he's doing exactly that. But when it's time to pick the right berries while the other ones are growing, you pick the right berries. It's not like he's trying to build the roster through free agency and finding these right berries all over the place. No, he's picking his moments. He's picking his moments and spotting where this roster is at, determining, is this roster at a spot like when he got Montez Sweat last year? That was perfect. This team was really, really leaking on the defensive line and getting the pass rush and getting to the quarterback and giving this defense a chance. And immediately that paid dividends. That's picking the berries when they're ripe. When it's there, it's there. What I'm saying, Crimson. And I believe he's building that roster through the draft. And when those opportunities present themselves, that low-hanging fruit, that ripe berry, I think you grab it, is what I'm saying, J2K. Do you feel the same?
Well, yes, but I would actually play a little bit of devil's advocate here. I agree with you 100%, you and Keds and Brian. I would just add that what got us into so much trouble the last regime was Ryan Pace going out, trading 2 number 1 draft picks for Khalil Mack, and then signing Robert Quinn as well, and we didn't get the return on investment, right? And the contracts were so high.
I'm gonna let you continue, but the problem with that is that he didn't allow Mitch Trubisky to prove the theory before he pulled the trigger on the trade. Like that's a real problem. If he waited, and we talked about this a little while ago, if he waited 4 games and realized, oh snap, Mitch wasn't the guy, he probably wouldn't have made it for the trade. But you know what I'm saying? If we wait 4 games and we see a positive trajectory for Caleb, oh snap, I don't see why you don't make a trade like this.
Well, I would actually use that argument in the opposite sense. Is us fans, we see the games, but Pace saw the practices, and I know that Trubisky wasn't playing well in those practices, and I think that Pace decided, okay, I got to make this switch. I got to bring a star player in here because Mitch isn't that good, right?
He stinks.
And it wasn't just that one trade. I don't want to pigeonhole the argument here. Trading up for multiple players using several draft picks. My point is that the draft matters a whole lot, and there's a balance. So that's why I said playing devil's advocate, because there's a balance between trading for a Montez Sweat or using a draft pick on defensive end. There's a balance there as far as the cap space. Now, if we have a window that we want to fit ourselves in, I'd be cool with another second round draft pick going to, I know we keep using Max Crosby as an example, so we'll just keep rolling with that. That would just put our team totally over the top. It's just a second round draft pick that's actually not that bad for that quality of a player. We've got 5 years before the contract and the cap space is going to be eaten up by Caleb Williams. So I am okay with doing that. However, we do have issues like we've got to re-sign DJ Moore. Are we going to re-sign Keenan Allen next year as well? Tevin Jenkins is coming up for contract. So we have some contracts that are coming up that we need to respect. And it's more, I'm just arguing that there's a balance to it. But I do 100% agree that if we got a 6-1 team and Caleb's playing great, the offense is great, and all we need is a stud pass rusher to not just get us to the playoffs, but get us through the playoffs, then I'm all for it.
See, and that's my thing. I think everybody's conservative until those opportunities present themselves. And I don't mean that in a political way. I mean conservative in the way of being a fan of the team, being knowledgeable about the salary cap and what we have, draft capital and all that stuff. Everybody wants to hold on to that because it's an exciting time, the draft period, and knowing what you can get out there in the free agent market, in the open free agent market, not at the trade deadline. But when we're in that position, if we're in that position, I'm telling you guys right now, there's going to be a lot of tunes that change if we're in that position and we're pushing. And I think people are going to come to the understanding that if that's the piece that we need, Ryan Poles, go ahead and ring that bell, hit the light on the lighthouse, let them know that you're out there and you're looking for that piece. And so I think, I understand. I think most people in here are absolutely right. We need to look forward to the future. But I think you can look forward to the future at your own peril. You know what I mean? And miss opportunities in front of you in the present is what I'm saying. There's no time like the present. You can miss great opportunities by looking, down the road. Your time might be now and you might not even realize it. But we're not there yet. We get to that position and we're at that 4-2, 6-1 mark or something in that neighborhood. I think a lot of people are going to come to the agreement that yes, Plank. Thank you, Plank, with the $2 super chat. Patty Lord said, hit that like. Queen P said, hit that like button. There's a lot of people watching the show and not stopping for a second and hitting that like button. Man, it would be so nice to see the people that watch the show during the live shows match the likes. And, people that are watching the stuff for the first time or sitting on the sidelines that haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, man. I believe this is really good content, and I think people really like it. I know why people are apprehensive about it, but, man, it really doesn't hurt none. It doesn't cost you anything. Hit the subscribe, man. We would love to get to 2,000 by the time the season starts. But, yeah, man, this conversation could go on and on, man. I knew it would once we started talking about the DN.
Hey, Nomad, I just want to add a quick comment, please. This idea about pace don't seem to be, building through the draft.
Close, but yes.
In 3 years, first year he had 11 picks. Second year he had 10. This year he had 5. That's 26. That's almost 9 picks, and you get 8 a year. So he is building through the draft. He's just, with trading second round pick, he's being smart. He's able to play the draft. I hope he continues that trend. What I would like to see is we're not relying for a big splash in free agency. That's where you start spending the money.
And actually, just to add to and he's hit on his draft picks outside of maybe Velus Jones. Poles is doing a masterful job at drafting the right guy.
And we're not there yet, J2K. You mother. We'll say that for later on, but He wants to get there, but no, I think he's just, Don is right, man. He did say that, most of the impactful players are Edmonds, TJ, and some of these other guys, Montez, they are the most impactful guys. But that's called supplementing your roster. You build through the draft and you supplement it with free agency. Isn't that the name of the game, kids? You build your roster through the draft and you supplement what you have through free agency. And is that not what a good GM is supposed to do?
It's just an adrenaline shot, man. That's all it is. If your team needs it, and that's really what. And if you look at the last two free agents that he pulled in, being Montez Sweat as well as Chase Claypool, they were adrenaline shots. Bring in a guy who's high powered on the offense. Bring him in. Throw a relatively semi inexpensive case scenario out the door, and bring in somebody who should be able to help improve your team in a spot where you really needed that improvement. Didn't work out with Chase Claypool. Sure as heck worked out with Montez Sweat. If we need one more of those to really push us towards a deep playoff run, he will continue to build through the draft and the following draft. There's no questions about that. But if you need that adrenaline shot, that turbo booster, guys, you know what I mean? Boom, kick this thing into gear. You go do it, and you take that deep playoff run, and you hope to God you win the Super Bowl. And that's kind of where my headspace is. I'm pleasantly optimistic about this whole thing this season, guys, and I hope that you are as well. I hope that this training camp is a welcome situation where we're looking at an offense that is actually performing well, and it's surprising. And if that's the case, I hope that continues throughout the entire season.
So, kids, keep your pipes warmed up, man, because we're coming right back to you, because Dom Rob is definitely a storyline going into training camp. There's a lot of Bears fans, and I'm one, and I'm definitely one that was really, really excited about his potential. His body type was he's a freak athlete is what he is. He's absolutely a freak athlete that has played multiple positions in college, from quarterback to tight end, now defensive end. And now here he is in his third year of his career? Am I right? About third year of his career, and everybody's waiting on him to turn that corner, bend that corner. And what does Flu say all the time? It's what most good Bears fans and football knowledgeable people know. It usually takes 2 to 3 years for defensive ends to really, really start rounding into shape and really putting the tools in the bag to be a really effective defensive end. That's defensive lineman altogether. Flus was absolutely right about that. It's a toolsy trade. You have to be very toolsy to be effective along the defensive line. You're dealing with real pros that are paid good money to stop you from getting to the quarterback and from getting those hurries, those sacks. These guys are really good. And Dom Rob being new to the position, I'm trying my best to hedge the some of the vitriol I know is going to come towards Dom Rob, and a lot of people want to see him gone. They feel like we can probably improve the roster with someone else. But this is what I know about a football player and coaches. The investment put into Dom Rob is what they're banking on. They're banking on the investment and the time spent, the man hours put into Dom Rob to get him over to this point. I want to see him turn the corner. I'm hearing that his body's much bigger, he's stronger. And, I think for the last couple of years, I believe he's kind of dependent on the speed and quickness game, to get hurries on the quarterback or get sacks. And I think he's going to lean into more of the power game this time around and use his arms and be strong with the long arm stab and driving that quarterback into the tackle into the quarterback. I think he has a strong outside chance of making this roster. Not a real strong one, but a strong outside chance of making this roster. What say you, kids?
Oh boy, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with development. Like the thing about Dom Rob when you were describing just him as being a freak athlete and all the different positions that he's played, he hasn't really had the opportunity to build a bag of tricks for the defensive end position. Like, that's what's missing. When he gets there, if he can't beat you with speed, he's pretty much cooked. He's not going to beat you with power. He can't beat you with speed. He's not going to beat you with hands. He's stuck, right? Like, it's so 3 years in now at this point with a little bit of additional size, maybe he does have a bag. Maybe he spent some time in the off season working with guys to get his hand fighting correct. Maybe he's developed a ghost rush. Maybe he's developed a bull rush. Hard to say at this point because we haven't seen any of it. Hopefully some of these things start to show up in training camp. But the reality here is he's had the snaps. He probably is well aware of the shortcomings that he has. And hopefully he spent a fair amount of time this offseason trying to build on those shortcomings. And, it's as down as I am, and I'll be honest about that, I'm definitely down on Dominique. I didn't see what I wanted to see or what I hoped to see from him in the role last season. But more power to him because of the athlete that he is. I was actually super excited when they brought him on this team because I was paying attention to his story before we drafted him. Having him be here for the last 3 years and just not quite grow into what I was hoping he would grow into has been a little bit, lackluster or disappointing. But all the more for him to throw on that size, get the training, and get the get that bag of tricks that he needed to get and apply it in 2024. So hope, fingers crossed. Hopefully Dom can do some stuff, but I don't know. He's definitely got some competition in an Austin Booker who has been playing at the position and has a bag of tricks.
So, Cares, before you pass this to J2K, Jason wants to know, and I think he's thinking about Chris here. Jason wants to know how's his ankles looking. Talking about Dom. I think he's thinking about Chris.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen the ankle specifically. I've seen the upper body much bigger. I'll have to pay attention. I'll have to get a telescope in on them ankles.
I would just echo everything Ked's said. That it's hit the nail right on the head. I thought the issues early on were technique. He didn't have the mass to switch to something else, to a bull rush. It's encouraging that he hit up the weight room, not only just because of his size, but you can tell that there's urgency in his mind to take the next step. So
yep.
I'm going to play the optimist with Don Robb, and I'm going to hope that he does pan out. We'll see. We'll see what we hear in training camp. We'll see what he shows on the field in preseason. I'm crossing my fingers because the guy really does have the height, weight, speed associated with being a very good defensive end. And I kind of, you look at the other side of the offensive line. I'm not jumping ahead, Nomad. But, Braxton Jones, very athletic guy with incredibly long arms. You look at a guy who's raw, who has the length, height, and speed, and you see the potential. And I think we all saw the potential. We just didn't see the production, so we're all a little bummed out. But that potential is still there, and I'm not going to give up on him just yet. What do you think, Brian?
Well, number one, as long as any player that's under contract for the Bears, I'm always rooting for him and hoping the best. As far as Don Robb goes, I mean, I can come up with a dozen excuses. I'll go back Eric Washington. Let him get a chance to work with Don Robb, and if he don't show anything in year 3, then yeah, that's if Washington can't get anything out of him, and this is year 3, it's probably curtains for Don Robb. But I mean, like Keds and J2K say, when you look at, during the combine and all like that, gee whiz, the guy is super athletic. I don't know if it's confidence, something, prior coaching just wasn't able to get to him. I don't know, but man, I sure hope it works out.
He just doesn't have a bag of tricks.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean, like, there's situations where you can bull rush a guy and then switch into another move if the
Yeah.
bull rush isn't working, or vice versa. You can ghost
Well,
rush and switch into something else, and he just
is,
doesn't
is
have the
that
ability.
is that him learning the position? I mean, that's what I
It's
mean.
just, yeah.
There's a dozen excuses, but year 3, however many excuses are, you got to rule them out and say, yay or nay. But I mean, I hope it works out. Like I said, he is, a player for the Bears. Plus, if it does work out, you don't have to worry about making any kind of trade, hopefully, and the cap stays manageable.
You know what terrifies me about this whole conversation is if he
But
did not make this cut, and in a year from now he's on effing Detroit, and just like Leonard Floyd, you see a guy blossom and comes out of that caterpillar and turns into a butterfly. So it's part patience, it's part time spent, and it's part instinctual to see enough of Dom Rob to say, you know what, yeah, I think he's right there. But then you have guys coming right up, right on his heels. Chroma. You've got Austin Booker, who we just drafted. You've got other guys. You've got Jacob Martin. You've got all these guys. This is going to be an uphill battle for Dom. Dom Rob is going to have to be almost dominant in this preseason, or they know something we don't to keep him on this team. This is just the flat out truth about it. I think, in the real world, you really look at this preseason and make a determination. You don't go off of feelings, you don't go off of history, you don't even go off potential. Let him show it, like Brian said, in preseason, and hopefully he turns that corner. And I would love to see that happen. And if
Sure.
it costs somebody else their roster spot just to see Dom Rob with all the work and time they put in on that guy, just to see him emerge would be, to me, that would be like icing on the cake. That would make it worthwhile. That while we suffered with him in the lineup, he came up and showed that, it was worth their time. So I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for every last one of them, but him in particular, because I like a fight. I like a guy that's in a struggle to keep a spot. I love it. I love it. You won't find you if it's a fight, you'll find me there. And I love to see guys that are willing to fight. And he's a fighter, man. So we'll see what he's got, man. We'll see what he's got. But while we're in the conversation of the defensive line and the topic, and the guy we circled on that defensive line was Mr. Gervon Dexter. And we'll couple that. We'll couple that for the sake of time. Him and Zach Pickens and the storylines that are going to be created during that time. While Hard Knocks will be here in a few days. They'll be at Hallis Hall, I think, on the 5th or 6th, setting up, getting ready for these guys when they come in. I think those guys are going to be outside of Caleb and the rookies that we have on the roster. I think those two will be a heavy focus in Hard Knocks training camp. I think everybody that goes to watch these training camps, these live practices or public practices, we'll be looking at those guys. I know if I was there, I'd be paying particular attention to Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens. But before I go any further, I'm gonna pass it off to the Canuck and not take meat off the bone this time.
Well, meat or no meat, I'm just gonna say, if a guy like and just to go back a little, if a guy like Dominique Robinson develops, we don't have, like, the conversation that we started this entire show with kind of dissipates. We don't have to worry about trading for another defensive end or really even focusing on that position down the road when it comes down to drafting. We have to be of the auspice that, some of these guys are actually going to develop. And if they do, y'all, again, holy smokes, we could be going a heck of a lot deeper than we really than most people think, right? So if a Gervon Dexter actually turns into what we all hope and think that he can turn into, and the part of the upside here is he's working on himself, and you can see it, it's evident. And much of what we said about Dominique Robinson comes to play here, just in the fact that he Giving Dominique some props. He kind of took a look at himself and said, okay, so I'm not winning these bull rushes. Let me put some size on and see what happens this year. So he's a little bit bigger. He's going to focus on that. And again, hopefully he's got a couple more moves. Gervon Dexter did similar things, looked at his body type and said, you know what? I need to be a little bit more svelte, but at the same time carry the same amount of muscle mass. So he's a bit more like, I'm going to use the word thick. It's probably the wrong word. He's slimmer, but stronger at the same time. And you can see it. He's probably also faster and carrying that muscle a little bit better. So I expect him to be a destructive force in the center of that defensive line. If he can be dominant in that position, wow. Now they got to worry about him and Montez Sweat on that line. And it's not as easy to double team two guys, especially a guy in the center, as it is to double team a guy on those edges. If he figures it out, y'all, man, I wouldn't want to be opposing offensive lines. That's for sure. That's what I'm hoping for Dexter and Pickins as well.
Before you go, J2K and Kez, recognize what I'm doing. I'm getting Kez's pipes ready for his own show, getting him ready to start, being the voice of what he's got to do. So I'm going to feed you what Do It All 36 is saying. He's making a great, interesting point here. Corey Wooten, former Bears defensive end, only had 1 sack in his first 2 years. In his third year, he made the jump. One of my favorite D linemen we had here. So speak to that, man. That's a very good point.
It is a very good point. He put Aaron Rodgers out to pasture. Or was it Aaron Rodgers he got? It was Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he put Aaron Rodgers out in that game. Was it Brett Favre? It was Brett Favre. I swore it was Aaron Rodgers. He definitely put a Green Bay quarterback in the dirt is really all that matters. And big ups to Corey Wooten. And that's what you call development, y'all. Like, that's what it is. A guy like Corey came in. He was all about football. Just following the team and learning and growing within his position and his role on the squad. That stuff proved well for him. And I can see that as well proving for a Dominique Robinson or a Gervon Dexter. I will be frank, though. I expected to work for Gervon more so than Dominique just because of experience and snaps. It's not a question of a tool bag. I know Gervon has one. He came in with one. Dominique truly has to develop one. So, and these are like some of the stuff that Gervon's been saying about the position in his first year as well was like things he had to learn is, I have to learn the scheme and what my role is. And in doing so, once I finally understand the scheme, now I can get off faster. So as you may have noticed last season, he was really slow getting off, and that was the worry for Gervon. But further on into the season, you sit back and you look at him and you go, okay, like the get off's a little bit faster now. I wonder why. And immediately you attribute it to, it's the Tez effect. No, Gervon just kind of figured out what his role was, what his job was. So now he can do his thing that much more effectively. So he's also learning. This is development. He's learning. He's learned about his body type and made a shift there too. So I expect it to play in a major way with how effective he is this season.
Well, yeah, I echo all of that. The growth that Gervon Dexter made last season was obvious and impressive. And the one thing that I want to add to this conversation is I do think that Dexter is going to play some 20% of snaps at defensive end. I don't think that was a fluke last year that we saw him lining up at left defensive end. I think this staff really likes him. They like moving him around for matchups. And I think the sky's the limits. I think there's a potential for a Chris Jones level of a player that we're just watching grow before our very eyes in Gervon Dexter. So I obviously am sky high about this kid. Zach Pickens, a little bit different story. I feel very confident that I see what type of a player he is. I think he's a very good rotational nose tackle, 3-tech, depending on down and distance and matchup. I hope that I'm a little wrong with that and we see a leap from Pickens, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I think I kind of understand the type of player he is, and while he's a good player, don't necessarily see him as a starting tackle. But I'll leave the rest for Brian to fill in on all this.
Oh, no pressure. As far as Dexter, seeing how he improved as the year went on, that tells me two things. Kudos to the coaching staff because they totally got him playing different. It was a different style than he played at Florida, where Florida, it was more you watch, then you react. And they got him to, hey, they kind of bluntly start putting a rocket up his ass. And that's how he played. What really impressed me is seeing how he morphed his body. I mean, he almost looks chiseled. And, last year he had some, body fat. That tells me he's taking his NFL career seriously. And again, if that's coaching, great. If it's him doing it himself, that's even better. I like somebody that can coach themselves and motivate themselves. As far as Pickens, of all the rookies last year, I think they're going to improve second year with the coaching staff and just, a year experience. I hope Pickens has the biggest jump out of all of them. I'm not like J2K said, I don't know about him being a starter at guard, but he is versatile where he could play both tackle, where he could play both tackle spots. But man, if he improves greatly, he can give those starters a lot of break. And you hear Flus, and it's just common sense, that second wave, which meaning that you got good backups, that there's not a huge drop off if somebody gets injured, somebody needs to take a break or whatever, and you don't lose anything. That's why I'm hoping that Pickens really makes a major jump. And I hope, they talked about how him and Dexter was friends during the combine, how they was always running into each other at airports, going to visiting teams and all like that. I hope Dexter, his motivation and determination rubs off on Pickens, and he hits the gym, hits the film room, whatever. I'd love for that guy to make a major improvement.
I think I've said, Gervon Dexter is going to, J2K made a great comparison calling him, basically he's got Chris Jones potential. We're looking at a guy that's going to emerge and be that kind of impact at some point, man. He's going to be such a pleasant person to watch grow, and how much he impacts the game. I see all pro written all over this guy.
Yeah.
And it's going to be special to watch it. And watch as he emerges and develops and starts really cleaning and fine-tuning his pass rush game, his run stop defense. It's going to be a pleasure to watch it, but I do not want people to discount Zach Pickens. I'm putting on my scouting department hat right now and give you guys a reminder of what we got out of that draft out of South Carolina. Look, what a lot of people, criticized Gervon Dexter about in his first year was his get off before his first year. But when they were looking at him on tape, he's slow getting off the line and not understanding what two gapping means versus a one gap defense, penetration, get behind the line of scrimmage and move it back. Not understanding that concept. They looked at that film and didn't understand what role he was playing in that defense. Same can be said for Zach Pickens. Zach Pickens was in the two gapping defense. Just go back and look at Zach Pickens at South Carolina. He was two gapping most of the time. Every now and again, when you see those really, really impactful plays that he made, he was asked on that play to get upfield. Now, don't forget this about Zach Pickens. And I think, and I'm going to tell you guys this now. Remember, you heard this at the Nomad Network. I think Zach Pickens is going to be the most pleasant surprise in Bears camp come this training camp. I think you guys, if now I'm prefacing this with the if they don't put him and play him mostly at one tech and give him three tech reps mostly, and that's reverse what they've done so far. They gave him mostly one tech reps, which is slightly out of position for him. However, them being at a need at one tech and at that nose guard spot, they felt like he was a guy that can put on the muscle and weight to be able to hold that up. And I think it was a good idea to cross-train that guy and let him understand you're going to play up and down that defensive line. Sometimes we'll throw you out on the edge and see what you can do there. Sometimes we'll line you up right over the center. Sometimes we'll line you up at 3. Sometimes we'll line you up at 4. He's getting that cross-training that every defensive lineman that is capable needs and being versatile, which is what Zach Pickens is. But I'm telling you guys now, with my scouting hat on, one of the things that really sticks out to you if you watch enough Zach Pickens film is how goddamn sudden that guy is. This guy is absolutely sudden. And when I tell you when he knows what he needs to do and exactly the technique he needs to use and knows pre-snap what this line is set up to do to him, and he can figure that out and counter that coming off the ball, Zach Pickens is going to show you guys why they drafted him. Zach Pickens is a stud. He just played out of position and didn't get the snaps in that rotational role that he played last year. Now that he's stepping up a peg, you know what I mean, with the now that Justin Jones is gone, this dude is going to show you, and mark my words, the Nomad Network told you this. Zach Pickens is going to be one of the storylines coming out of Bears camp. I can promise you that. I'm telling you, he's got those kinds of special traits about him. He's more sudden than Gervon Dexter is, period. That doesn't slight Gervon Dexter. That means this player is quicker. That's all it means. He's quicker off the ball. And Gervon Dexter is still going to be that impact player that I told you and J2K said he would. It's going to be more with power. Zach Pickens is, I'm telling you, you guys are going to find out they got a stud in Zach Pickens. And I'll stand behind that, and we'll see come anybody want to I've been talking a lot, man. Anybody want to talk about Jason Super Chat? You want to do that, kids? Get the pipes.
I'm gonna read it and throw it at all of you guys because it's a really good question. Thanks for sending it through. Jason with the $5 super chat. Do you think Pickens will rotate with Dex at 3 tech and Randolph will rotate with Billings at one tech? What do you think, J2K? I'll actually throw it at you, brother. What do you think?
I think Randolph is actually going to rotate the same way Pickens is, and he'll be the backup to Zach. And I think Zach's going to split time between the nose and the 3 tech. I see Dexter splitting time between 3 tech and actually edge. Maybe a 20-80, 30-70 for Dexter. Now with Pickens, what I find interesting is that in college he was explosive off the snap and he did have that quick burst, but they added weight to him once he got to the NFL. I found that very interesting because I think what they saw in his frame is that they could add more just mass, not even muscle mass, it's just mass to the kid, and he still would be explosive enough to be a contributor at either nose or 3 tech. However, when he was in college, I thought that he, obviously shouldn't have been playing a 2-gap scheme. That wasn't a good fit for him. But that they would, in NFL, they'd actually add muscle mass. They would make him a little leaner, not a whole lot compared in college. I thought they were going to kind of go the opposite direction with him that they did in the NFL with the Bears and get him into a pure 3 tech role. Now, when we drafted Dexter, I saw a guy who had the physical size to add more mass, and he could have played that split position between nose and three tech. But overall, I was wrong about my projections as far
So
as what the Bears
JTK,
ended up doing. They flipped it.
let me ask you a question, and try to put on your defensive mind. Is try to put on your defensive coordinator cap, and you're bringing in two young guys that you think the world of, and they have potential up and down the line. How do you start training them? What do? You put them in an exact. Tell me if I'm wrong or right. You put them in the exact position that they thought. Let's just say, okay, I came in here expecting Gervon Dexter playing because I'm big, 320 pounds plus,
Right,
playing
six
one thing.
six.
And
Right.
so instead of doing that to him, putting him exactly where he thought he was going to be, put him at three tech and test his basically test his skill set there, and doing the exact same thing. We know Zach Pickens is sudden and can play three tech, but let's cross train him and put him over here for the time being and see how he grows at that position. Do you understand the philosophy?
Well, what I would say is they had time in training camp and OTAs to make those assessments. We don't see that. We just see what's on the field. But they've, in my opinion, it wasn't an experiment what they did. They went through the whole season this way, and they specifically created a um, a food diet and a straight strength or lifting regiment to get them to these specific sizes, because what they have, the science behind what they have is so extreme that they can actually do this and dial in players. So I think they actually put Zach and Dexter in the positions they want them to play long term. But having said that, that position is also multi-positional situations. They don't want a pure nose tackle, even though Billings is a pure nose. They don't want Dexter to be just a three tech, or they don't want Zach to just be a nose. I see that they're moving them around, but I don't think they went in and said, okay, let's put you in a bad position so you can learn this well, and then we put you in a good position, you're going to be that much better. I think they just went in with a plan and they're carrying it out overall.
I think Scottish Bear, and hats off to Scottish Bear for, me being tongue tied trying to explain myself to J2K, said exactly what I was thinking and what I was trying to convey to J2K. They know his strengths. They know those guys' strengths. And you got to improve on your weaknesses, which is why I think the mindset was don't put them where they predict them. We know Zach can play three tech. We know Gervon can play one. Flip them around and see if they can be equally as effective doing opposite roles. And Scottish Bear, I think he's exactly right. That's exactly what Flus had in mind, and that coaching staff was to make sure that they strengthen up where they thought they might have been weak. Get them strong. Zach playing one. Get Gervon strong over there playing at the three tech. Get him used to that. We know you can dominate if we slide you down to the one, Gervon. We know, Zach, you can dominate if we put you over the three. Let's see what you can do when the roles are reversed.
Let me ask you this. So do you think that Dexter is going to play a significant role at the one tech next year?
If they need him to, you think he couldn't?
No, no, I'm not saying whether he could or couldn't. I'm talking about percentages of moving to different spots. So what I project to see is that Dexter plays some 70 to 80% at three tech, and then he plays 20 to 30% at edge, right? Like that's the path for him. I think Pickens is like a 50-50 guy, three tech or one tech, depending on matchup, depending on health, depending on if Dexter is in that three tech position. And to speak on the strengths of the strengths, but you work on your weaknesses. We're talking about strengths in college, right? Talking about Dexter playing one tech in college. Mm-hmm. We're talking about Pickens technically playing three tech, but he's played in a two gap scheme. So even that's a little very different than what we're doing here. So I don't see the I don't see this as we're revving them up to move them to another position. I do see very much that what we saw last year, Pickens splitting between nose and three, and Dexter between three and edge. That's what we're doing going forward.
So I don't want to present this whole thing as an argument between J2K and I. What we're doing is cross-referencing ways of thinking. What I'm doing is like, say for instance, J2K, you see Gervon Dexter in a game, in a live game, playing edge snaps, right? You
Yeah.
see him out there. You see him out there getting edge reps. You didn't see Zach Pickens out there getting edge reps.
Right.
It's likely what occurred in practice when they gave those guys those reps at those spots. Okay, do we want to present this in the game? Do you think he's ready? Do you think Gervon's ready to go out there and get some snaps at edge during the game? That obviously manifested itself as positive. Yes, he's ready to do that. Zach Pickens, no, I think he needs more time to work on that. You know, that's kind of what I'm kind of getting at, is that kind of stuff manifests itself in practice. You know, Gervon Dexter has proven, I know he can play one. I know he can play three now. He's proven to me that he can give them some value at over at 4 or 5, right? And so what I'm saying is when you get those snaps in practice and those things start to manifest themselves, you start to see them in the game. I'm thinking you're going to see similar things from Zach Pickens. Similar stuff that, you know, that those reps that Gervon got in practice, I think he's going to be the starter. I know he's going to be the starter, but those reps that Zach gets this year is going to kind of mimic what Gervon's were last year. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Thank you to Scottish Bear one more time for that. But man, I think he is going to be a pleasant surprise, Zach Pickens, and I think people are going to understand why they drafted this guy. I'm telling you, Zach Pickens is a dog. But I'm talking too much, J2K. I think you understand where I'm coming from.
I totally understand, and I appreciate the conversation, because the more I talk about what I think and the more I hear what you think, the more I learn and grow with my football knowledge, and the more the chat chimes in on what they think. That's what it's all about, is listening and learning and teaching and talking. And I love the discourse with you, Nomad. Always have. And even when we're not doing a show, you and me are always talking football. So I thank you for that.
All the time. I love it too, man. J2K, the connection is just growing, man. Don't take it as J2K and Nomad are arguing. You just basically comparing and contrasting a way of thinking. That's all it is. It's just the way I look at it, anyways. But again, I will say, Brian, do you want 2 cents in on that, because we kind of ran over you there, man, and didn't give you a voice.
I just want to say hi to Keds. How you doing, big guy?
Doing well. Thank you very much.
No, I can't really add anything other than what you and J2K has said. I think Dexter, I could see him playing some edge. I don't know if it's going to be 20%. But him and Zach flip-flopping tackles, I can see. And I apologize for this next comment. I don't watch too much Illinois, so I really don't know what Randolph brings to the table. Now, is he somebody that can play nose, or is he going to be strictly a 3-tech, or what? Because, I mean, that makes a difference in the equation too. If he's somebody that can play the nose, then yippee, we got more back up there. If he's someone that's just strictly 3-tech, my mind's at ease a little bit, because just a couple of weeks ago I was thinking, hey, we could use 3-tech, and then when I look at the roster, you got 4 or 5 guys that could play 3-tech. You got Dexter, that Dumford, or however you pronounce his name, maybe Randolph, Pickens, that Byron Coward, he could play it. And then Mowry. That's a lot of guys be throwing at that one position.
Yeah.
And Walker can play 3-2.
Correct.
Yeah.
I forgot about him.
Yeah.
I like the mindset the Bears have with dealing with those guys. They felt like last year was a lost year. We know that now. That year was a wash, and they didn't expect anything to come of it. You know, kudos to Justin and DJ Moore and that team to get us where we got to with 7 wins. But that was, if you look back on it now, that was expected to be a wash with some little bit of.
And there's a benefit to that, right? And this is the one thing I did want to, I did want to sort of add on to what you were originally saying here is when expectations are low, you can throw what at the wall and see what sticks, right? Like you can just test things out.
Yeah.
So I think they actually had the luxury last season of sort of going out there and saying, hey, look, like we don't expect to go to the playoffs and or win the Super Bowl this year. So let's just try and figure out who these rookies are. Let's throw let's throw Dexter out there and give him some different looks. Let's do the same thing with Pickens and really get an understanding of who he is before, the 2024 season, so we actually have an understanding of what to send these guys off into the world with, right? Go work on these issues, go work on these areas of weakness and turn them into strengths, come back the following season. And now that we have an idea as to how we can play you, things should be that much better. So again, with a brand spanking new defensive line coach, as well as DC, if you want to call Eric Washington that, I think it may bode very well for that defensive line as well.
Kids, keep it ready, because what I'm about to talk to next is something. Now, Cornelius, I know Cornelius wants to wrestle me. Cornelius Squalls would love to wrestle me to the ground and beat the absolute shit out of me, because when we got Braxton Jones,
That's a long line.
And yeah, man, line up, man, like that lady on that movie Airplane. I saw that old movie. They beat the shit out of me.
Hey, like I know exactly what you're talking about too. That's a great thing.
People got in line. But listen, Braxton Jones, I might have helped Cornelius get a little confident, and I'm very confident in Braxton Jones. And he ended up taking the starter's job and doing exactly what I thought he could. Braxton Jones is very, very impressive as an offensive lineman, coming from a rookie to a starter and holding that spot down for going on his 3rd year now. Very, very impressive. But you can't be such a Bears fan that you don't recognize where the flaws may or may not be. And this is where I take my Bears hat off and evaluate an offensive lineman, an offensive tackle. It became clear to me at some point that Braxton Jones did not and could not hold up to a strong bull rush. And that became a problem. Some people might tell you that Justin Fields and him holding the ball too long, the route concepts weren't suitable for someone to get rid of the ball early. They were kind of longer route concepts that took time to develop. And that, attributed to why Braxton Jones got worked a little bit and, he looked as bad as he did. I will consider that. And some people might say that Braxton Jones has had an entire offseason to get stronger. And don't be messing with me, Cornelius, man. Let me make my point.
I knew exactly what you were laughing about too, because I saw it too. I was like, uh-oh.
He's trying to mess with me because I'm messing with him. But listen, it became apparent to me that if Braxton Jones, and I think the word out on Braxton Jones is you power rush him. You power rush him, and that's how you beat him. And once it's like I almost said the wrong thing about the little hot girl in school, man. When you were in school, people get a word around, but that's a whole other conversation. People start putting labels on people and all that kind of stuff. That's no fair to whoever that girl was. But the word gets around in football circles, just like anything else, that this is what you do to beat Braxton Jones, and that's power. And so what I'm afraid of is too much faith in Braxton Jones doesn't leave room for other people to challenge him. And this rookie quarterback has the same problems that the quarterback we just traded has. And that's my only problem. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Braxton Jones can get stronger in one offseason and make himself better than he was in the last season. But I just don't see it. I think he's thin at the lower body, and I think power rushers will use him. The only way Braxton Jones holds on to this job is if they scheme this thing up in a way that gets this ball out of Caleb Williams' hands fast and doesn't expose Braxton Jones' weakness. Does anybody disagree with me, Kez, that him getting power rush is his weakness? Let's just start there.
No, I can't disagree with that. Right. That is his weakness. That's his Achilles heel. He's gotten a little bit better on it over the years. Hopefully he gets better on it this year as well. But again, that is a developmental area for Braxton Jones, and he's well aware of that. So again, it's important to know your shortcomings in all aspects of life, whether this is your work life or whatever. It's important to understand that so that you can make modifications, and I think Braxton will. As far as how I see things with Caleb being the new quarterback in Chicago, I've watched him hold the ball a lot longer than some folks might like. But what I do see is a guy who also knows how to climb the pocket. He climbs it very well, much better than our previous quarterback, who I will leave nameless for this, for the purposes of this show. In any event, he climbs the pocket. He also looks, when he's scrambling, he's looking up. He's looking to throw the ball. He's not head down, I'm going to run you over. He's heads up, I need to get the heck out of here and find a receiver. And I think that's going to be the difference in a lot of scenarios where he's hurried out. I think he's going to be a little bit. I think he's going to be okay. I just worry about stuff like holding on to the ball and running out of bounds with it, or not getting rid of the ball just to survive another down. Simple things like that will take a little bit of time for him to acclimate into. I'm just saying that to give the kid a little bit of leeway, but at the same time, I will be impressed if he has that wherewithal early into the season. And if he does, I think it'll bode well for the offensive line and the number of sacks and pressures that are potential to happen this season. J2K?
Well, can we all agree that Braxton Jones is a pretty good run blocker, right? Pretty athletic, gets out there in space, right?
He does.
So I'm going to kind of rewrite this narrative on Braxton Jones pass blocking. Now, take it with a grain of salt. These are PFF grades, right? Braxton Jones graded out as 82.7 in pass blocking grade last season. He was 7th among all tackles in the NFL. So take that with a grain of salt, because I know it's PFF. My point is that while Braxton Jones does have an issue with the bull rush, and it's a glaring issue, I totally agree, he is that much better in all other aspects of pass blocking. Now, I think that his issue has more to do with technique than it does building more strength. I mean, he's going into his 3rd season. He's had time to be in the weight room. He doesn't come across as a slacker to me. I think he takes this very seriously. So I think he is working out. I think he's just
very intelligent too. He's a smart cookie.
Right. I think he's just more of a athletic offensive tackle than a power offensive tackle. And so we just see him in a different light when the bull rush gets to him. Guys get into his chest and he gets on skates, and we see that and we're like, oh man, we got to replace that. But keep in mind, that's just one play. But overall, I mean, the guy is grading out as a top 10 tackle. He had a better pass blocking grade than Laramie Tunsil in Houston, who's considered top 3 offensive tackle, left tackle in the NFL.
Okay, but isn't that where it's got to be a point where analytics can get skewed, and does that match up with what you saw?
Yes, and that's a very good point. To an extent, yes, I do agree with the analytics, because he is so athletic as a pass blocker, and his Achilles heel is the bull rush, right? But if you look at the entire group of types of pass rush moves that he's gone against, or types of pass rushers he's gone against, he's actually playing exceptionally well, considering how raw he was coming out of Southern Utah State Christian, MIT, whatever. So you saw how raw the guy was coming out, but he really does have the length and the size to be a very great. I mean, I don't want to call him a finesse offensive tackle. I'd rather call him an athletic offensive tackle. And I think in time, let me back up. Offensive linemen, their prime of their career tend to be in they're like 28 to 30. And a lot of that has to do with technique. And they're past their physical prime, but they understand the game so well, the angles, where to have their hands, that's when they really flourish. So that's why I don't want to give up on Braxton Jones, because I see this incredibly bright future with him, where people are just saying that Poles just found a diamond in the rough in the 5th round out of a small school, and he took his lumps for the first 3-4 years, or first 3 years in the NFL, but then we'll see it as a light switch turning on when suddenly he learns how to handle that bull rush. But as soon as he learns how to handle that bull rush, there's nothing else that's going to get the guy, right?
Okay.
So I think you make a fantastic point, Nomad. I would just say that you might be putting a magnifying glass on one specific thing and saying this is a problem, which I agree with, which is exactly what we're doing.
And the only reason I put it there is that's an aspect of playing tackle that you need to be solid at. And you're right, man. Braxton Jones has all these other elite traits and puts up these nice numbers. He's a great run blocker. He's great technically. Jumpy a little bit on the offensive line, jumps off sides a little bit too much, and he needs to work on that.
Penalties are also an issue, actually.
Yes. And other than that, yes, you're right. I am highlighting the bull rush because there's ways and schemes and ways that you can really take advantage of a guy that can't handle a bull rush. And I think Poles doesn't draft Kieran Amagaji if they're that confident in Braxton Jones. Not to say that he wouldn't draft for depth anyway. I think it's at this particular time drafting that guy with that pick, with this many draft picks, I think told me something, that they are seeing similar things on film and saying, this could be something that's chronic. We don't know if that's true or not. Hopefully Braxton Jones gets stronger and get better at that and gets better at what he does against the bull rush. But in case he doesn't, just in case this becomes something that is chronic, we've got somebody to back that up. And so they'll be working Kieran Amagaji in case what I'm saying manifests itself into something that's chronic. So he's gonna have to get better at all that other stuff. Him being good at these other areas, you still need to be damn good at power rushing, because you're going to get a whole lot power pass rushes against you if you don't. So that's just the ball-headed truth about it. He's going to experience a lot of power pass rushes if he doesn't get better at that. But I'm glad Ryan Poles backed him up with Kieran Amagaji. I'm hoping this guy ascends. I'm hoping I'm eating crow in a few months.
I think you might wind up eating crow here, because initially I thought that I'm fully with you, and I was I wanted some level of competition at that position behind Braxton. I thought that's a great idea. At this point, I'm a little bit less worried about Braxton from a play perspective, and than I might have been. Anyways, I'm a little bit less worried. I'm glad they got Karan behind him, but I feel like Karan's probably more of a Larry Borum replacement than anything else, and I'll be completely frank about that because it's going to cost them a pretty penny to keep Larry Borum in that swing tackle position. So I'm a little worried as to his status as we move forward, just by way of dollars and cents alone, price tag. Having that additional competition and having Kiran investing a draft pick into Kiran is all the more reason for them to have that swing tackle in him and utilize him in that capacity. My real worry here on the offensive line is actually not that left tackle position. It's straight up and down the center. That's where I saw a lot of pressures coming in last season, and I say the center, but it's more or less the two gaps beside him, right? The two gaps beside the center. If the center botches the snap, somebody's coming flying through that gap, whether it's Nate Davis over there slacking, or you know what I mean. It's really coming beside that center. So I hope somebody steps into that role here this season and fills the hole that we need at center. I hope one of these guys, whether it's Bates or Shelton, or whether they go and get a Connor Williams or whatever, that's my worry. My worry, much more so than anything else, was a lot less of Braxton's getting bull rush and now Justin's getting flushed out of the pocket. It was Braxton's getting bull rush, Justin's getting flushed into a defender that's already coming through the center. that's the worry, right? Like that you can't have both of those things.
Let me speak to Cornelius, my man Cornelius. Probably we always talk about who's the number one no maniac, 2, 3, 4. Look, Cornelius
definitely number 3. Cornelius, don't let him talk trash.
Hey, listen, man. Cornelius might be number 1. Cornelius might be number 1, straight up.
You hear that?
Because he's always been there. Always been there from the
It's true.
From the very beginning. And I want that man to know how much I appreciate him. And while I'm responding to him, I'm responding to him with the utmost respect when I speak to you, man. But he's saying Nomad just doesn't like Braxton's physique, but a lot of great players don't fit the ideal physique. You know what, man? I'll speak to exactly what he's talking about. And he's talking about Braxton's lower body. Look.
The socks.
Nicely done.
Yeah, this ain't no goddamn hockey team. Shit. Get them socks off. Wow. Don't get me started on that, but now you're going to get me to digress. I need to talk to my man Cornelius. Listen, dog. Like I've never played. I know my limitations when it comes to talking about football. You know, different roles I played throughout my football career. You know, I can speak to with some real integrity. Offensive line is my particular biggest weakness, and I talk to friends of mine to make sure that I get myself up to speed when it comes to discussing this. And when you hear Braxton Jones, and I think I heard him on a podcast, and I think it was on CHGO. He was on CHGO one day, and I heard him being asked a specific question. Now, don't ask me what that specific question was. I'm going to give you his response. And I think it was about, what's the difference between college football and NFL football, and what did you notice right away? And I think one of the first things out of his mouth was, you feel that power right away, the NFL power. And so what I'm saying to you is, like you look at these guys, Cornelius, you watch these guys play on TV, and we all watch them on TV, and tend to, even us, some of the people that have played football long enough to can really talk in detail. People don't really understand. They make that stuff look easy along that offensive line. These are 300, 280, 300 and something plus pound linemen, big grown men pushing up against you. These are men that, that are trying to move other men, 300-pound men that don't want to be moved. Think about that war up front. Think about how much power and thrust goes into that. And you're trying to stop people from, moving you. This is a 300-pounder trying to move another 300-pounder. And what I'm saying to you is, I know that the power base, the power source, the absolute epitome of where he gets his strength from and power from is in his base. And it's in his lower body. And thus far, I have not seen it. Can he get it in this amount of time? I don't know, Cornelius. That's what worries me. I want y'all to shut me up in a few months from now and say, Nomad, your ass, you know what? I'm going to stop talking to you, Nomad, because you didn't know what the F you were talking about. Braxton Jones was fine. He was perfect this year. But I just don't know. He showed me the tendency that the power rush is a little too much for him. Is he good in all the other areas? Yes. He's really good in some of these other areas, but that scares me. And it just scares me for this quarterback. And, that's just what I want to say to you, Cornelius, with all due respect. Hopefully, this stuff will manifest itself and you're right, man. Braxton Jones might be perfect to get the job done, but, I'm going to question it until I see it. If he comes in stronger and shows in training camp that he can do this thing and the bull rush doesn't affect him like it used to, then I will stand corrected. I will come on here live and tell you guys that I was wrong about Braxton Jones. He got it together. He worked on his weakness. He got stronger, and it's no longer a problem. But until then, I'm going to question it. I'm going to question it for the sake of this quarterback. And I'm glad they got some a veteran in here prior to back him up. And I'm glad they got a rookie in here just in case things go left. But that being said, man, let's get to the last topic and J2K's favorite topic to talk about right about now, and that's Velus Jones. Mr. Velus Jones. And what, you're talking about a storyline. I'm going to, J2K, I know you're going to try to rob me of my PowerPoints, but don't do that to me, man. I'm just trying to do a podcast, sir. All right. So I'm going to make a very good point when everybody gets done making theirs, but I'm going to pass it on to the Canuck to give his point about Velus Jones and that storyline.
Oh, man. You see what he did there? Anyways, so
right back, I got to go for a second.
All right. So things to be said. Velus Jones is jumping out there, guys, as far as practice is concerned. He's been jumping out. He's been showing out. The one place he hasn't been showing out is the one place we all would like him to show out in, right? And that's catching the ball. You know what it is. Like, I'll just say it once and we'll leave it out there. That's still a little bit a work in progress. But outside of that, he looks good. People are kind of impressed with what he's been able to do, especially with the new young quarterback in Chicago. So they don't know what they're going to do with them. It's like you also got to now wrinkle in the whole, NFL has changed the special teams case scenario for kickoffs. What do we do with all this? Who's going to do what and how? I don't know if this bodes positive for Velus Jones or negative. There's situations where folks are now talking about, maybe Khalil Herbert is the return guy. Maybe it's Odunze. Maybe Odunze does that. I don't know who's going to wind up doing it. Well, like the way that they're saying it, it wouldn't be crazy. The only crazy part is that it would obviously take Odunze off the field for first down, right? Like he's going to have to
if the number 9 pick in the draft is returning kicks or punts, then that's a stupid draft pick.
Well, he's the number 9 pick. The number 1 will be throwing footballs. So maybe it is. I don't know if that makes you feel any better about it. No, it doesn't make him feel any better about it. Okay, fair enough. I'm just saying the upside is, again, we're not real. We still have a Keenan Allen and a DJ Moore on the field in that scenario. So you could then layer in one of the other wide receivers, aka Velus Jones. So I think the moral of the story is people. The Bears are taking notice. Velus Jones is showing up in practice, and they don't know what the hell they're going to do with him. I think is the best way that I could put it. So we got a couple more weeks of this Velus Jones experiment. Right now, it's at the peak. It's at the critical mass. We're gonna have to see what it all pans out into, because I think, like, if this young man could like, I wonder if they still use Stickum. Is Stickum out there? Can you use Stickum?
Damn.
No.
You talking about
I'm
that's
just saying.
your daddy's Bears, man. This is 2024 Bears, man.
Man,
like
if it
two
was
catcher's mitts on both hands, right?
if it was my daddy's, anyways, I'm just saying, Velus Jones might come down with a couple of them catches. Perhaps we might have won a couple of those games last season. And like, let's be real, like those situations, were like game-changing situations, which really shut a spotlight on Velus Jones to make matters even worse. So at this point, let's just wipe the slate clean. Let these guys figure out what they're going to do with this particular character, because, given all that I've said, they've also doubled down and brought in competition at that position too. So I don't know what any of it means as it pertains to him. J2K, I know you wanted to talk about this one. Go for it.
Well, Velus Jones was someone who I paid attention to a little bit in college. When we drafted him with a 3rd-round draft pick, I did not like the pick. I went back and I researched as much as I could to see what I had missed to have him, outside. I didn't think he was worth the 5th round. I thought 6th or 7th.
Yeah.
And this isn't like I'm reading off of somebody else's grade or opinion of the guy. I watched every single snap the guy had played in college. I watched full games of him in college just so I get a feel for what the offensive coordinator was calling, how he was using him. And he wasn't even the primary target in those instances. It was Cedric Tillman, who's now on the Browns. He's a great wide receiver. Velus played 6 years of college football. He only played in games in his final and 6th year. He never saw the field with USC. I didn't understand the draft pick at the time. I didn't like the draft pick. Now, Velus Jones, last year, he had 4 receptions for 20 yards. He has more drop touchdowns than he has touchdowns for his career. And he can't return punts. He can't catch the ball with his hands. And I'm going to finish this up with something that Alex Brown said a few years ago. There are a ton of guys on the street that can run, but not many of them can play football. Brian?
Well, first, getting back to the other topic, if anybody wants to stop talking to Nomad, just remember that you can always talk to me on Facebook. Now, getting to this topic, and Cliff, his idea was exactly what I was thinking. Velus and Wheeler are the only 2 guys that can run 4.3. I'm hoping that with a different wide receiver coach, that maybe he's able to get to Velus. I'm not expecting Velus all of a sudden become, an all-pro, but at least, be a solid, 4th or 5th wide receiver, because that speed. I think this new kickoff rule, that could be what keeps him on the field. Again, I don't know if it's confidence or what with him.
He can't catch the ball. He can't.
Well,
it's something he did in college. It's why he never got on the field with USC for 5 years. 5 years?
I think he's playing the wrong position. I'd like to see him at running back, but that's another story. Because he could still return punts and kicks.
He's proven he can't return punts.
Well,
he can't catch the ball. Even on his kickoffs, you see the ball bounce around in his arms.
That's enough, motherfuckers. All you motherfuckers, shut up, because I got y'all. I let y'all beat the hell out that guy long enough. Now let me tell you something. I want everybody to keep this in context, please. keep this in context because I think I seen somewhere that on Twitter. Now this is on Twitter. I don't know this to be for certain that Ryan Poles may have had his eye on Caleb Williams for the last 3 years. I seen that on Twitter. I believe that to be true because, kids, do you remember when I said that on the show and everybody kind of looked at me kind of like, oh, what are you talking about? No, man. Yeah. This is when we still had Justin and we were having all those conversations. And I was saying that, I think he had his eye on Caleb Williams for a while now. And now
wait a minute. How is that even possible when David Stills makes a Hail Mary fourth quarter last second of the last game throw that then gives us a first overall draft pick we then trade out of for the next year?
Just because he wants to recruit him doesn't mean he knew he was guaranteed to get him.
Of course. Okay, then I agree. But he had his eye on everybody. Had his eye on Matt Ewer out of Texas.
Caleb Williams is what I'm trying to say. And so now you're going to say that maybe Ryan Poles is some kind of, freaking Yoda or something. I don't know, but listen.
I would have went with Svengali, but Yoda's good
I'll
too.
I'll take that one.
Nostradamus.
Because if he had this guy in mind as a possibility, I don't think, and I think you guys, I've said this many times on this show, I don't think they ever, if they got receiver out of Velus Jones, it would have been a plus. If they got receiver stuff out of Velus Jones, it was always going to be a plus. And they got a couple plays out of the guy, you know what I mean? But mostly what they got is the stuff that people remember, the stuff that J2K is on. He dropped the ball too many times. He isn't very good with his hands. He's awful with his hands, and he needs to work on them. That being said, I'm gonna visualize this for you guys. I'm gonna paint this picture for you guys. And it's not about the receiver, Velus Jones. It's about the weaponization of Velus Jones and what you can do with the Velus Jones type. And he doesn't have to fit the particular skill set of your modern day receiver. If you have vision and know what to do with him. That point Alex made, that was a quick, quick quip is what it was. It's a lot of guys on the street that are fast and can't play football. No, Velus Jones can play football. He just hasn't been applied in the right way. So the weaponization of Velus Jones is a storyline that I'm looking forward to. There's an absolute model for what Velus Jones can be and what kind of career he can have, and that is Percy Harvin. I want you to think Percy Harvin in the second that I just said it, and think of how many times you saw deep balls being thrown to Percy Harvin versus how many times you saw that ball handed to Percy Harvin and him taking it 67 yards to the house. Think about that for a second. It's because where he was at with a creative offensive coordinator allowed him to be the football player that he is. He lined up in the backfield. He lined up out wide sometimes. He was the zip motion guy or the move guy, whatever you want to call that guy. And he was able to impose himself on defenses in multiple ways because of his speed, because they weaponized him. That's what I'm saying to you guys is maybe Ryan Poles had a vision for Velus Jones. And a part of that vision never manifested itself. Velus Jones, a receiver. But Velus Jones, the weapon, is definitely still in goddamn play come this training camp. And how Shane Waldron wants to use him and apply him as that weaponization piece could absolutely threaten defenses. And so
let me ask you, Nomad, do you think that Shane Waldron is the offensive coordinator who will find that role for Velus?
I think he's capable.
Well, I mean, has he shown that?
I think
did he show that in Seattle?
He didn't
I'd say yes.
Like Velus Jones in Seattle.
Really? I saw him going 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and a running back.
J2K, it's easy to pick holes in that point. I'm saying that whatever you saw in Seattle is based on personnel.
Sure, and I totally agree. But at the same time, this is something that I've talked with you about, where I don't see Rome Odunze getting a ton of receptions, not because he's not a good receiver, but because we're not going to play a ton of 3 wide receiver sets. Now, when you think about that, where does that put Velus? I think he's the last guy on the depth chart, and it's very possible that DeAndre Carter was brought in to replace him, who came from the wide receiver coach that we currently have from San Diego. And to your point, Nomad, of weaponizing Velus Jones, Tennessee is the only team in college, in the NFL, to ever find a way to figure Velus Jones out. USC had 5 years with him. We've had 3 years going into his 3rd year. And the way in Tennessee they used him was just these sail route concepts. You got to go, you got a sail route, and then you've got a flat guy. And generally that flat guy would be your tight end or your running back. Just run to the flat, stand there. If you're open because the defense is playing some deep zone or they're in man and they're blitzing over here and whatnot, then this guy's going to get open. So he literally just stood there. He didn't run routes. He just stood there and was like, I'm open if the defense lets me open. So he didn't have any route running experience, how to sell this route, how to sell that route. He doesn't know how to sit in zone. He doesn't know how to, box out a defender in man coverage. I mean, the list is just so insane of what he can't do. We're all sitting here on a pile of hope. That's 1 inch thick.
You keep measuring him in terms of a receiver. You keep measuring him against what every receiver's traits give you to measure them with. And I think that's where you get it wrong. I think that's because you keep measuring him up against all of these receivers with all these different traits and skill sets. That's where you get it wrong. And,
and I know a lot of people talk about
not that you're wrong about Velus Jones, but I think that's where you get it wrong with your evaluation of what can be done with him.
Well, a lot of people talk about him as a running back.
Yes.
Nobody has ever tried that with Velus Jones, not even in college, not even at USC. We read about Velus Jones.
They tried that here, man. They put him in the backfield and tossed his ball.
So they've put him in the backfield a couple of times. He's got some yardage. He also put the ball immediately on the ground. And I had to say that loud because it's important that we all understand they've definitely tried him as the Deebo Samuel type. Here's my problem with the whole thing that you're sort of suggesting, Nomad. He's potentially like the 5th string wide receiver, if not further down on the depth chart. How much time is an offensive coordinator going to spend to build a package special for Velus Jones? And that's my problem with this. Like, he's a talented guy. His talents are a little bit outside of, like, as we've established here, they're a little bit outside of what you would call, standard wide receiver, and they're a little bit outside of what you would call a standard running back.
Right.
That being the case, you need to have a specialized package for him to be successful. Now I'm going to poop on the idea of a specialized package even more so because we started to see this. The second you put Velus Jones out on the lineup, the odds of the jet sweep increase exponentially. So the defense is going to stop and go, wait a minute, Velus is out there. What are the odds they're not doing a jet sweep?
Leverage it. Here's my argument to that.
It's a good, where you're going is going to be good, because if you're successful with the jet sweep, hell, it's 3 jet sweep touchdowns from Velus Jones, and it's a problem, right? Okay. But we have to actually get to that point. And in getting to that point, we're basically ignoring a Rome Odunze, a Keenan Allen, and a DJ Moore that are decent money to, that could be doing all these things.
You asked me a very specific question. You asked me what coordinator is going to spend time making a package to weaponize Velus Jones. This is
a fourth or a fifth wide receiver on the roster.
The way you just described that, with the addition of Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and now Rome Odunze in the passing game, there's not very many touches that's going to be available for him, including the tight ends and the running backs that all got to get touches and, pass catches. There's not a lot to offer. So how do you become uniquely qualified to make this team? An offensive coordinator comes in to see Velus Jones up close and personal for the first time and said, holy shit, I got to figure out how to get this dude the ball in his hands. It's just that simple. It's just that simple.
Well, then why did JSN have so many missed opportunities because he wasn't on the field with Waldron, and then come out after the fact and say this guy doesn't like playing 3 wide receiver sets?
You're comparing Velus Jones to JSN?
No, I'm comparing what Waldron did with his formations to what he'll do in Chicago, right? And in Seattle, he had a far better 3rd wide receiver that he absolutely could have used. And if Velus is the 5th guy on the roster, how in the world is Velus ever going to see the field on offense?
You're trying to say what you saw on social media, and I think I've seen the same thing, and kind of JSN kind of gave him a slide a little bit and said he wasn't creative enough, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, what JSN alluded to was that Waldron doesn't like playing 3 wide receiver sets. And JSN is a very good wide receiver. They took him, 20th overall? And they had a stacked receiving core. They had no offensive line. And granted, I understand Waldron saying, okay, we can't pass block in a 3 wide receiver set. We just simply can't. So by all means, your argument for personnel and Waldron makes total sense, which is also part of my argument why Blasting Game still makes this team, just because Waldron's a West Coast guy, and I think that's a scheme thing he can do. But, it just goes back to how much time do you have in training camp, in practice, to say, Roma Dunze, go sit this one out. Velus, you're in. How often do you really want to do that if you're Waldron?
And I'll tell you, in a situation that I see Caleb Williams in, especially in the first 5 to 6 games, and this is early in the career, they're going to really come after him. And you need players that can really get that defense to back off of you. And they've got them out there on the edges between Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore. How do you apply a person that can in the running game? And that's where I think he's going to be weaponized in some kind of way, is on the ground.
Who would you rather have running the ball, Khalil Herbert or Velus Jones?
That's a catch-22 now. Don't do that.
What do you mean?
Herbert's a starting running back now.
No, Herbert's a 3rd string running back.
Herbert's a starting running back. He was a starter. He's going to be number 2 this year. Now,
I want to add something real quick.
Yeah, Brian, you haven't had enough airtime.
Okay, I am on Pro Football Reference. In 2022, Velus had 3 fumbles. Last year, 2023, 0. He is average. Average.
Before you continue, he fumbled last year. Just went out of bounds. I'm just saying, straight up and down. They didn't count it as a fumble. It went out of bounds. But it was on a jet sweep. I know it. Continue.
He averaged 6.4 yards a carry. If we're going to talk about fumbles, and I know this person that I'm going to bring up, Velus is no ways near his stratosphere, but the guy had a fumble problem. Adrian Peterson.
All right.
All right. The difference though is how many carries did Velus Jones have to get those 6 point whatever yards?
Can I clean
two carries?
Can I clean this up for you guys? Because if I don't do this, if I don't frame this conversation and put it in this terms, I think a lot of people are this conversation is going to get lost on a lot of people. And it's going to look like a big old argument between the Nomad Network crew. And I don't want that to be the case. It's a healthy conversation about how people feel about Velus Jones and what he can actually contribute to this team. This is what I've seen happen time and time again, watching football my whole life, seen this stuff happen. And Don Burr, if you in the chat, you're going to speak to this. What I hate to think about is if Velus Jones hits the waiver wire and a team like Detroit, who's on the verge of
why is it always Detroit? It's like a fear factor thing.
Hold on. Let me finish. And they figure out what
Why
the
do you
fuck
think Don
to do with
Burr's
him.
in the chat?
And they figure out what the fuck to do with him. And we're just like, how come we couldn't figure that out?
So
It's about being imaginative and figuring out what to do with that guy before the next team weaponizes him and using him against you.
But everybody keeps going back to Velus Jones as a running back, and we have 8 carries in his entire career to make that assessment as an NFL player.
It's easy to kick him in the nuts, J2K. That's all I'm saying. Go
ahead. I mean, and even in college, he wasn't running the ball. So it's like, what we're saying is like, maybe if we did something with Velus that he's never done before, he'll be really good.
Exactly.
It's like, where does that confidence come from?
Because you got to be imaginative and figure out how.
Well, I can imagine in Braxton Jones being a good left tackle, but I can't in any slight of way imagine Velus Jones being anything more than a kick return guy.
That's the way you see it, J2K.
Yeah.
And I knew this conversation would take this turn. I knew how you felt about him when we got him, and we've had vicious arguments online about it. Now we're having it live.
Well, not vicious. We just disagree in our projection of where Velus Jones is going. I respect your opinion.
You're more analytical in your mind than I am. I'm more creative in my thought and what they could do with him. I've seen guys like him that doesn't take well to a particular role or a receiver role or something like that teams figure out, okay, this dude is absolutely electric. When you put the ball in his hands, let's get him in open space and let him try.
And Cordell Patterson is a great example. He was taken very high in the first round. He can't catch a go route or fly route to save his life. He can't track the ball. You put the ball in his hands, and yes, he can make magic happen as a type of a running back slasher kind of in an option style of an offense with Arthur Smith or something like that. It took years for people to figure him out, and Cordell Patterson has 10 times the talent and ability that Velus Jones has.
Oh, see, now you
so there's like a thing here, right? So and I'm pretty sure J2K and I are in like full alignment on this. So when they drafted Velus Jones, and I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier on, you're saying like 5th or 7th. I was so there with you, right? So I'd run about 1 billion mocks. Me and Chris running mocks as per normal. I'm looking at this particular wide receiver. I had not seen him go beyond round 5, period. So to see him go where he went, and also to have Pulse basically do the culture friendly thing and not pick up a George Pickens, which he had the opportunity to do. He also had the opportunity to pick up Alex Pierce or
Khalil Shakir, Calvin Austin III, Romeo Dobbs.
Why you starting?
Sorry,
say what? Shut up, kids! You starting shit, man. J2K is just.
I'm not, but I'm trying to explain why we look at I look at this pick and I'm like, okay, so clearly Ryan Poles knows something we don't about this wide receiver, and this is why he selected him. Come to find out, what he didn't know was that he couldn't catch the football, and that's the unfortunate reality here. If he can't catch the football, and that's an issue, right now we've got 3 number 1 wide receivers on this team. Whereas even last year, we only had the 1, right? It's a different beast, that room. I just don't see, on top of some of the stuff J2K is saying here as far as Waldron and scheme, Waldron at times sat JSN, right? Like he went 12 or 13 personnel and sat JSN. Sorry. So JSN had a little bit of, took a little bit of issue with that because obviously he's hoping to have a better rookie season. But it is what it is. I just don't see, again, unless he crushes special teams and our guy Cliff Victoria, shout out to you, brother. You just threw out some good stuff in the chat there. One of which was just like Ian Wheeler probably provides just about the same level of special teams goodness as a Velus Jones. Who's the guy who becomes that special teams guy? I don't know. And if that's the only reason we're having a conversation about Velus Jones, we probably wasted about 10 minutes of the world's time.
I'm gonna round this conversation off about Velus Jones with this. All I do is hope that we have vision inside that room, because somewhere there's vision on somebody else's team, and they will weaponize that motherfucker. I promise you that. They will weaponize that dude and figure out what to do with him. And, just because, and I don't want people to look at his flaws, his shortcomings, and, whatever you might have thought of Velus Jones thus far as the measuring stick as to what Velus Jones is. I think if you look at Velus Jones purely as a receiver, I can understand why you feel slighted with that pick by Ryan Poles. I can absolutely understand that, because that is not what Velus Jones was drafted for. It's just about him being a weapon, and how that weapon is used. I'm about to highlight it, kids. Don't worry about it. Okay. How that weapon is used is all determined on this offensive coordinator's vision. All the points that everybody made on the panel about, how many opportunities is he going to get with these wide receivers, these tight ends, these running backs, his ability to be able to catch the ball and all that stuff, fumbling, all that stuff is worth talking about. But I think we missed the point. If we focus on those things and not think about what can be, if you use him properly, if you apply this guy properly, and you weaponize his talent, because he does have absolute elite talent. And if it's just speed and power, then you use speed and power to your advantage and weaponize him before you let him go and some other goddamn team uses him to F you up out here. That's what's going to happen if you trade or release Velus Jones. Somebody's going to get a hold of that and know that this guy has a specific talent that they can use to pop your ass. And so hope and pray, get on your knees every day that this offensive coordinator that we have in Chicago has the chutzpah to figure out how to use Velus Jones and apply this guy. Just hope, because if we don't, and that guy ends up on the free agent, I'm telling you, this guy's going to burn. He's going to burn bad.
Or he goes to a Detroit Lions and fumbles the football on the 1 yard line like he did for us, and we win the game this time.
All right. Let's get to $4.99. Jason Stat. You asshole.
Yeah.
Here's
awesome.
Jason. We remember Velus' first year and his fumbles. Why not? Why are we not holding Mooney and his lack of catching ability in the end zone the same way? You know what, Jason? I don't know if that's the best comparison right there.
It's not, but I'll touch it, right? Like, the fact of the matter is, I think Ryan Poles held that into account when it came time to offer Mooney his contract. He offered Mooney a pretty, middle of the road contract. I think it was a $10 million contract is what he offered him. Mooney said no. He figured he could make more money on the open market, and he did make more money on the open market. Question is, will he, perform in Atlanta? We'll have to see. I have a hard time, and I'll say this out loud now that Justin is no longer with us, unfortunately. I have a hard time blaming all those drops just on those receivers. I don't know what was going on last season, but there was a fair amount of drops by a fair amount of different characters. Wasn't just Mooney, wasn't just Velus Jones, wasn't just Chase Claypool. There's a lot of drops. Let's just throw Tyler Scott in that list. There's a lot of drops, and I have a strange feeling that it probably had a little bit more to do with connection and or the way Justin was throwing the ball at times. But we'll leave that where it is. I don't think there's any more to worry about Mooney in this case. If both of them are dropping footballs, Mooney's definitely been held to account. He's no longer on the team. Velus Jones is. The other guys that I brought up, like a Tyler Scott, he's a more recent investment by the Bears. I just don't see him having any issues this year moving forward with the team. Velus at this point is in year 3. He's also coming in a little bit older, so I just he just has to show some stuff. And this is the cool thing about this conversation, guys. He's actually showing stuff, which is just crazy. He's showing stuff in practice. People are talking about him. He's connecting with Caleb quite frequently. The last thing I have to say about this particular character is with respect to something my guy Scottish Bear said. My biggest worry is straight from the mind of the Scottish Bear. My biggest worry with VJJ or VVJ, no, okay, yeah,
BBJ.
thank you, VVJ is he goes to the ground every time he catches the ball. Get him in the backfield in training camp and see what he can do. And like you notice that he's a body catcher, his hands are really bad, and he also goes to the ground when he catches with the body.
Can I
It's
slow
not
you
a
up
good
for a
situation.
second, kids?
Yeah.
I've met guys like him before, and I talked to J2K about this privately. And when guys, it's a couple of things going on. Guys they're not sure about their hands, and that tends to lead to, like, I was trained to catch with my hands, and if you saw me catching footballs, you'll never see me catch the ball with my body. I was trained to do that from day one. Everybody doesn't have the same upbringing. Number one, and that just gives me confidence when I see a ball coming towards me to stick my hands out, web them, and grab that ball. I mean, reach out and grab it, not wait till that ball comes to me. And that's a big difference. The second thing is, I think, and it's proof to me, I think Velus has a depth perception issue. Now, depth perception in terms of someone's neurological, that he's not seeing that ball the same way I see that ball coming to me. In the air, when it's coming to him on a pass, or when it's coming to him, and I think that's even worse than the ball coming to him in the pass. I think in the air, I think his depth perception is absolutely thrown off. And I saw
Does he
that.
need glasses like Troy Williamson did from Minnesota?
Now you still want to kick him in the nuts? All right.
No, honestly, you remember him? He was like the 7th overall draft pick, went to Minnesota.
Yeah.
And it turned out, like, after 3 years, he had the eye stigmatism and needed glasses.
Man, I'm telling you, there's something going on with him.
Same with Jameis Winston. He had to kind of figure it out later on, and he got some LASIK or something.
I'm telling you, there's something else too. That was pretty bad, man. Watching that was hard to watch. Velus Jones being stuck out there to catch a punt, and I'm looking at this guy not being sure where this ball is at. And by the time he gets close to him, close to where he can focus on it, he just absolutely panicked. And that being said, I don't want to take that conversation any further. I think.
Well, I do want to respond to Jason's super chat because he did specifically mention me later in his comments. So, to be fair, I totally agree with you, Jason, that we should critique all players fairly for their success and their failures and all that. I think Jason's referencing when Mooney dropped the sure touchdown pass from Justin Fields against Washington. And I didn't see that as a glaring issue on Mooney. It was a bad play by Mooney, 100% agree. And Mooney suddenly turned into a guy who started dropping passes. But his rookie year, all through college at Tulane, he was such a good receiver, pure hands catching receiver, high pointed the ball, soft hands, just, so I chalk that up to just a fluke play. Where what I see at Velus is I see the same thing in Tennessee that I see with him now, and I respect Nomad's opinion. And to everybody listening, this is great. I really enjoy chopping it up with Nomad because we'll have disagreements and stuff like that. It's all love across the board, and it's important for us to come out and talk about these things so I can learn from Nomad and see what he thinks. And Nomad brings me closer to Nomad's opinion the more I get to hear what he thinks and what he says, because I really value what Nomad says. I trust his football knowledge and his intuition. And also I do think that, he's got a soft part for football players. And, I know he talks about me kicking Velus Jones in the nuts. I would love nothing more for Velus to prove me wrong, to have a successful career, to do what Nomad's asking, which is nothing on Velus. It's an offensive line to come out and figure out how to utilize this guy, because there is some, it's just a lopsided skill set, but there is so much there you could tap into, right? If you just found the right scheme, found the right plays, found the right coordinator.
I'm with you, bro. Like, I wanted to work for the kid too. As much as I razz him, I wanted to work for the kid too. There's nothing better in my mind, and why I went back to sort of that draft is like, I expected Ryan Poles to find a diamond in the rough here. That's really what I was like. Oh, okay, you overlooked all these other guys for this dude. Cool. Some like, you're deep. You went deep with it, because I didn't see this guy from the 5th or the 7th round maybe, but you must know some stuff. And what he knows is that this guy's super fast and super dynamic, and I appreciate all of those things. And if we can figure out, if they can figure out a way to utilize him in those capacities, fantastic. I just have to be a realist that at this point, year 3, stacked roster, you're spending a lot of time on a guy. Hopefully this guy can just simply find a niche for himself in special teams and maybe work his way into deeper into performance by way of the running back room or the wide receiver room. But he's got a long ways to go to crack, to start on that field outside of the existing guys in that wide receiver room. That's for sure.
Let me if you guys don't mind, thank J2K. I thank you, man. I appreciate that. That was very respectful. I don't know if I deserved all of that, but I appreciate it and I receive it. Here's what I would say to this whole conversation about Velus Jones and football players in general. Yes, I do have a soft spot for football players, and there's reason for that. There's my own history and my own understanding of what it requires to get on a football field, whether it be, I don't care where you played at, high school, college, pros, wherever you played. There's a certain level of something that got you there, and that's talent. And that's hard work, drive, dedication, all of that stuff. Coaching, it's another thing altogether as well. I've never been a coach. I fully admit that. I've gone out and helped people coach players in positions. I've never been a assistant coach, a head coach, not even a coordinator. I've gone and helped position groups. So my level of what I can talk about, even it has its limits. But I know what those guys go through. From the player standpoint and the coach's standpoint, and from us as fans, I want us to humble ourselves as fans, because I'm also a fan of football and these Chicago Bears. I'm that first. All the other stuff that I can add to the table, that's just secondary stuff for me. But I'm a fan first. I love this game. And what I would challenge the fans to do is learn to humble yourselves. Learn to hum yourselves. And I think fantasy football, I think this all 22, I think these mock draft scenarios have fattened people's head into believing that they know better than GMs do. And actual football people that are trained to do this stuff. And they think, and I love for those people to come here and challenge everybody's way of thinking on the show. I love it. I think you should offer that every time you come here. But I think at the same time, when you're done with watching one of these podcasts and being involved with one of these podcasts, you do yourselves a favor and to back up a little bit and remember, there are trained professionals doing this. We do this on the side just to enjoy ourselves. This is what we do on the side, but this is their business. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and you just got to trust them until you can't trust them anymore. And that's how GMs lose their jobs. That's how coaches lose their jobs. That's how players lose their spots on rosters. But us thinking that we know better than these people inside there that are practicing, coaching these guys, I think that's a fallacy. I think we just know what we're allowed to know on the trimmings of the edge. And that's all we get. What goes on day to day, I think we need to humble ourselves and allow these people to do their jobs and see what happens. And I'm not saying that in defense of Velus Jones or that whole conversation. I just sometimes see a need to pull the fan base back and let these guys do their jobs and let them make decisions. and you can be hasty afterwards. But respect them first. Respect them for the decisions that they make. We have a season coming up. We have a training camp coming up, and it's going to be some decisions that are made that are not going to sit well with people. You know, you have high hopes for this person, that person, and so do I. If Velus Jones gets cut, I will absolutely respect it. If Braxton Jones remains a starter, I will absolutely respect it. Absolutely respect it. Justin Fields, as much as I put on for him, now Caleb Williams is the quarterback. I see his talent, I see his ability, and I absolutely respect Ryan Poles' decision. There's a lot of people in this category of they were supporting Justin Fields, and now they damn the Chicago Bears to hell because they didn't keep him. I will always fault the Chicago Bears for not doing everything they can for Justin Fields, but at the same time respect them for Ryan Poles' decision to go another direction, because I can see why he did it. You know, I wasn't always there. I've come to that conclusion, you know. And so that's what I want to say to you guys as we have these conversations. Keep them in perspective, understand who these conversations are coming from, you know, and respect the people that have to go inside that building and look at this talent and deal with this talent every day. Respect what they have to decide and do. You know, respect it. You know, give these guys the opportunity to let their vision manifest. Ryan Poles has a vision of what he sees his team as. So does Matt Eberflus and the rest of that coaching staff. Let them manifest that. Let them manifest that and judge them afterwards. It's going to be plenty of time to do it. With that being said, let me pass it on to the Canuck, and we got to get ready to get out of here. We've been almost 3 hours, man. We're going to give some pleasantries to this.
One heck of a show, y'all. I'm glad you touched on what you just touched on, Nomad. It's part of it's part of the reality of being a fan, and you know, we go through what we go through, and we kind of look at what the GMs and you know, the brass of our favorite team, being the Bears in this scenario, and how they go to market and go about their business, and then sort of judge and weigh that versus what we might have done in a similar scenario. And I think that's part of the fun of it all. But at the same time, ultimately, the decisions to be made are up to the guys who are signing the checks, and in this scenario, that's Ryan Poles and his team. So you know, when he goes out and he grabs a guy like Velus, I'm excited. I'm like, okay, so I thought you were going to go in a different direction. Let's see what direction you went in. Okay, you went in that direction. Hopefully, it's successful. And here we are 3 years later, wherever it is. And that same theory can be applied to any of these other guys who, you know, he may have picked that I wasn't so certain he should have picked, or vice versa. Once more, I'm not the GM. He's the GM. So I'm going to ride with Ryan Poles. I'm going to ride with the Chicago Bears, regardless as to what happens here. And I know that's exactly what will happen for the rest of the folks out there, for all the no-maniacs out there. So we're going to get into a little bit of pleasantries and all that. We'll sign off here, but before I do,
damn you, Canuck, I had you covered. But go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say that's just a great thing. Keep your ears open and ears to the ground and eyes peeled and all that good stuff. Keeping one eye open for that. Superflex will be coming at you live and direct sooner than you know, and I'm super stoked. J2K is super stoked. My guy Brian is super stoked, and so is Nomad. We'll get this thing popping one way or the other. Now, for the fans out there, for the No Maniac, Scottish Bear, number one No Maniac, Planksters out there, Mr. Mayhem's with us, Armando Jr. Yo, those drawings were awesome. We'll have to chop it up at some point about maybe doing something with them. Jason, lots of engagement from you today. Thank you for hanging out with us. Really appreciate the super chats and the support. Good chopping it up with you, Jason. Cliff Victoria's out there with us. Robert Lee in the huddle, Chicago, CB Sickles. Who else we got out there that I didn't shout out earlier? It's Crimson. I'm sure I shouted out Crimson earlier, but Crimson deserves the love. No love for you, Don Burr. Absolutely zero love. Bear Truth 9 is out there with us. Both of the Smitties are with us today. James Hunter's with us. Joseph Belinsky's down with us too. Man, we had a pretty packed house. We got to really chop it up on some, upcoming Bears storylines, and we'll see what these things all shape up as we get through and closer to training camp. J2K, I'll throw it down to you, my bro.
Tonight was a great show, you guys, and this is what I love about talking about football is even if we disagree, I'm going to learn something in the process. I'm going to grow in the process of my understanding of how to grade players, how to look at offenses, defenses, coaching, everything. That's why I'm here. So I appreciate everybody on the Nomad Network, in the chat. All of you guys are awesome. Get excited about Ked's new show coming up, you guys. Superflex. It's going to be super dope. And I'm working hard on graphics. I can't wait to show you. We just gave you a 10-second sneak peek at what I'm building right now. So I hope you guys get super excited. I'm really pumped. But all of that doesn't matter. I just appreciate hanging out with you guys. This great community that we're building. So thank you to all of you guys for showing up and being a part of this. It means more to me than I think you guys know. And tonight was a fantastic conversation. Me and Nomad went back and forth at it. And, I love him even more because of this conversation, even if it got a little heated and we did disagree a little bit. Most importantly, Brian didn't get a chance to talk as much as I would have liked him to. So, Brian, I appreciate you so much for being a part of this channel, helping us out. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I'm so glad that I can talk to you in a podcast. That's just amazing. So, thank you, Brian, and I'm gonna give you a chance to just say your pleasantries to everybody.
Hold on, J2K. Don't forget Armando's artwork. That shit was awesome.
Oh, Armando, yes, Armando, DM me, please. We got to work together, man. It was dope.
He likes to be called Junior. That's what he made.
Junior, please, Junior.
Yeah, had to get that out there too, man. That was some awesome shit right there. But go ahead, Brian. I interrupt too many times tonight.
Well, after tonight's show, it was nice working with you, J2K. That was a joke. The No Maniacs, thank you for sharing your time. It's always fun and a pleasure. As far as the panel, me personally, I mean, I don't want to stir the pot and not looking for trouble, but at the same time, I don't want everybody agreeing because it's just, you're right, Nomad. You're right, kids. Well, I agree, J2K. That's boring. And it's because of our passion for the Bears, our knowledge that we have, and we come here that, yeah, you're going to have difference of opinion. It's what makes a podcast fun. And as a guy that's never played organized football or coached it, I learned from the people in the chat and, of course, the panel. So it's fun. I'm really looking forward to training camp and what's going to come out of that, because I'm sure that there's a few players that we talked about that, yeah, they may do good. And then there's going to be that person that we didn't even think of that steals the show. So I'm really looking forward, and I know that's probably going to be a further show further along. Also, we have to come into the realization, because of the great job that I think Poles has done building this team, that there is going to be some good players get let go. I mean, that's just the nature of it. And as sucky as that is, because I mean, we all got, a certain player, whether it's the underdog or whatever, that, we're rooting for to do good. That's just the case, but that is a good thing. So don't dwell on the negative. Wish that guy the best and keep, supporting the team. I have a ball at these podcasts, and I'm so grateful. I know you guys are getting tired of it. Sorry, but grateful for the chat, for the money to get this fantastic laptop for me, and I'm able to hear you guys, and I'm not stepping on anybody, and that's why I shave, so you can just see how gorgeous this 60-year-old guy can be.
I'm
But
glad you mentioned your shaving, man, because I gotta mention this because I had this whole line ready, and I'm gonna
here
give
we
it
go.
to you now.
Nice seeing you guys. I'm out of here.
No, you're gonna like this because I was expecting Brian to come in here with the white beard. I was gonna say, Brian, Mr. Brian, fresh from Valhalla. Subscribe to the channel. He will subscribe to the channel, or he will go to that witch and make you look like a goddamn frog if you don't for the rest of your life.
Wow. Very specific reference.
Go ahead, Brian. I interrupted, man. Go ahead.
No, I didn't have to use the head trimmers yet, Jason, but yeah, I may need a new pair of scissors. Anyway, you guys have a safe, blessed week. I look forward to seeing you guys Wednesday at 3:00. And take it away, Nomad.
I just picture Brian in that world of Valhalla and all that, man. And I can just hear someone say, "Seize him," and it just cracks my ass up when I think about that privately. Just to say that. But yeah, you guys. Thank you for being here and being part of the show. And I'm absolutely being serious when I say I'm gonna let Brian
Seize him. Sorry,
seize him.
I thought that was what you were gonna say.
Seize him.
Seize him.
You see him with that beard. You can see him with that guard suit on, standing at that door. When somebody says seize him, he absolutely has to act with that spear in his hand.
Guards.
But hey, you guys, thank you for coming, man. Listen, I would absolutely make Brian turn you into a frog for the rest of your life with a big ass knot on your nose if you do not subscribe to this content, because there's no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse with content this good for you not to. That means you're hating if you didn't subscribe to the channel by now. If you're watching this and listening to this and haven't gone to the YouTube channel and subscribe, you're just hating. And ain't no reason for that, because we love all y'all. It ain't a damn thing you can do about it. And so that's that. And so what I would say to you all is what I said before, is keep everything in perspective. Keep everything, let's just say, don't be afraid to speak your minds on these podcasts, but don't let what you think and what's in your mind overshadow what you know that these professionals have to consider. You got to think about this. They've got one cut down date. And I was just talking to Greg Gabriel about this when he was on the show. And, I didn't get the nuanced response that I was looking for. I wanted to press him a little bit and ask him a little bit more, because I know that he had more to offer on that conversation. This is talking about details into how long they may take in phases to start kind of cutting down the team and not letting the public know that they are cutting down the team. And, these things, when they start doing that, it's going to look ugly. It's going to look ugly. It's going to be people on this team that you aren't expecting to get cut. It's probably going to get cut. It's going to be some unfortunate things that happen. And that's a process of Ryan Post breaking down a team and rebuilding it and making it more competitive than it was when he got it. And that's exactly what you want to see. And so, everybody's outspoken. Everybody has a point of view. Everybody has a take on everything. But just understand that your take, you should keep it in perspective. It's just yours. And don't get divisive about it. That's not what we do over here at the Nomad Network. We have testy conversations. We have conversations that qualified as argumentative at times. But if you notice, we got people on this network that will pull themselves back, and I will absolutely throw myself on the sword and tell you when I'm right and when I'm wrong. And when I get wrong about something, I'll be the first one to let you know. You don't have to tell me, because I'm reflective about who I am. And so I think as fans, we should all be the same way. And so that would be my word to you guys before we get ready to get out of here. And you know, I really mean it when I say it. Kez has a damn good show coming up. And I really, really want you guys to pay close attention to that coming soon that he put out there, because J2K, Kez, and myself and the people Kez that he wants to be involved in it might be a surprise person that you guys don't know about right now that may be involved in that. And we could talk about that on another occasion, but I think it's going to be successful. You guys should help it be successful. Kez has been nothing but loyal to the Nomad Network, and I've been loyal to him as best I can, and I'm going to keep showing him that support. And so whatever he's going to do, he'll have me behind him 110%. You can trust and believe that, and I appreciate that guy.
I appreciate it too, bro.
And so that should be said out in the open so he knows that. I think he does privately, but I just said that out in the open. But with that being said, I got to leave you guys because we've been on here in 4 minutes. It will be 3 entire hours. So if you don't give a subscription for the quality of the content, damn it, 3 hours of content, you ain't going to give us a sub? Man, I'm going to hurt you when I see y'all, wherever I see y'all at. With that being said, we're going to get on up out of here. And my words to you guys tonight is, if you can think it, you can see it, and you can manifest it. And we are out.